call this meeting to order, November 10th at 7:04 p.m. Can we start with why don't we start with, Michael, could you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Absolutely. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Michael. And Carrie, can we do the roll call?
Of course. Christia Claire,
Here.
Marissa Brown,
Here.
Catherine Consavo,
Here.
Julie Hammond,
Here.
Julian Kishka,
Here.
Michael Mascola,
Here.
Todd McCormick,
Here.
Sean O'Neill, Sue Sherman, and Mark Sherwood.
Okay, great, thank you, Carrie. Normally we would go to the minutes, but Chris has to head out early tonight, so we're gonna just skip ahead real quick on the agenda to the administrative report, so he can fill us in on the goings-ons, and then we'll jump back to approving the minutes from the 14th and the 28th.
Great,
So
thank
take it
you.
away, Chris.
Thank you. I think I'll start with what we were talking about when we first came in. One of the really exciting things is the football team continues to roll, supported by both the band and the cheerleading squad. The football team won their opening round of the playoffs this past Friday night, well attended by the community, which is really exciting. They play again this Saturday at 1 o'clock here in Timberlane, home game, so come on down. I expect there will be support as well from the pep band and the cheerleaders again, so that's great stuff. The Crucible performed at the Performing Arts Center. The players performed, the Timberlane players performed the Crucible. Super successful, almost entirely sold out for all 4 of the shows. I believe it was just one of the shows was not completely sold out, and great reviews on that. Last night at the school board meeting, it was really fun to honor a couple of our students who last year in their graphic arts class, and I think there are some examples probably from the previous year, for the graphic arts and marketing that the students developed actually this logo and our letterhead for the SAU 106 logo and letterhead. They did it as a contest. We were able to honor 2 students, Josh Friel and Kendall Morrill, both seniors this year at the high school, who put together that logo and letterhead for us, and we're just so excited to have such a great professional-looking letterhead created by students. It's really cool. So they were honored by the school board and the administration and received some Amazon gift card. We had T-shirts made that all staff will be receiving, and a letter, of course, on their own designed letterhead, thanking them and congratulating them. So,
Awesome.
anything else that you can think of, Maria?
No,
No?
I think
Great.
that's all what we have going on this week.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Fantastic, thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
All right, let's jump back and we'll go to the approval of the minutes. Looking for a motion to approve the minutes from October 14th and October 28th.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for both October 14th and October 28th.
Motion made,
I'll second it.
second. Discussion? Or read them and then we can discuss. What was the change, Carrie?
On the 14th, it was to add a quote from Julian on Nancy Stafford's presentation about the sliding wall. And Sean wanted to add line numbers.
Oh, yeah,
Yep.
nice
So I added the
job.
line numbers in there.
All right, you're line 8, 9, and 10 in that one, Julian.
Which page?
Oh, sorry, the 4th page.
There it is.
Sean's not here today. Thank you.
All right, shall we vote? To accept the motion?
The only thing is, I'm gonna say, yes, you're gonna vote to do them together?
Yeah, well, that was the motion, to accept both of them together, yeah.
We can change that.
Only because I wasn't here for one of them, so I would typically abstain from one.
Oh, no, the other.
I'll withdraw my second.
I withdraw my motion. And
All right,
I'll make a new
make the new
motion.
motion.
You can just make them individually.
I'll make a new motion to approve the minutes from October 14th, 2021.
I'll second it.
Okay. Is that the one you were here for?
Yes.
Okay. All in favor? All opposed? Abstain? Okay, passes. And then we need another motion for the October 28th.
I will make a motion to approve, or make a motion to approve the minutes from October 28th, 2021.
I'll second it.
Michael seconds. All in favor? Opposed? Abstain?
Me.
2 abstentions. Okay. All right. This is always the quick way to go through the agenda. Any correspondence, Maria?
No, we don't have
Okay.
any correspondence.
Delegates and individuals, negative. Reports of committees, so school board rep is not here, this week. Budget committee members, anyone attending any CIP meetings recently? I know Sue is the lead on that, but Christy, have you been to any of those meetings?
No, I wasn't able to go to the last one.
Okay.
The last one was a while ago.
And
Yeah,
Mark,
we've had-
Mark's not here for
It's been a
the,
little while.
We
was
haven't
there-
had
We
haven't had
another
one
one
since the
since
last
one. Okay.
last, yeah.
all right.
Was there, oh, there wasn't one on Tuesday.
No. No, because we had the school board meeting last night.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Today's Wednesday.
I know.
Yeah,
All right.
okay.
Then
I
we'll
think I
move
was
on.
at the last one then.
Unfinished business, none that I know of.
No,
Okay, then let's get to the presentation. So,
All right.
new business, we're gonna start with special education and student services.
Yes. I'll be doing both of those.
Oh, okay.
Kelly Brooks was unable to be here today, this evening, I should say. So I'll start with probably the easier of the two, right? Student
Yeah.
services. But I'll preface by saying this too, so I think it goes with the history of positions in this district, where there was a director of student services and special education and student services were both under that director for at least the past few years. So the budgets themselves, I don't know if I've talked about this, but, well, we've certainly talked about it here. The way that these presentations are organized by, I call it department, special education or student services in each school, it's different from what I've been historically used to, where we really followed, function, code. You did each function going through the 1200s, et cetera, right through to the 2700s and the 5100s, I think is the last one, right? So where these are organized by department, what is a little unique is that there are things that, especially with special education and student services, there's this overlap, right? And with some of the services that occur with regard to some of the staff provide services in both of those worlds, so to speak. Which is good. We want our staff, especially folks like related service providers, guidance, psychologists, all of that, to be available to all kids and support all kids' learning and participation in schools. When you get down, of course, to budgeting, it's always cleaner to have it separated, right? To be able to delineate and identify exactly where money is being spent. So we've spent some time trying to reorganize some of that. So, if I go off a little bit or seem bewildered, it might just take me a second to come back and reorient myself. So, I'm gonna start with the student services and looking at the summary of proposed budget. For example, in our student services budget, actually, the out-of-district tuitions were in this department budget, or in this student services budget, when in fact, all of those out-of-district tuitions are for special education. So that's one thing we removed from this part of the budget, because that's not where it belongs. However, I think it was associated with the previous student services coordinator was the out-of-district student representative or local education agency representative, and that's probably why it got organized into that budget. Nothing's wrong, it's just we're looking to reorganize it to reflect how we have things organized now. And we're still working towards organizing lots of things. So in this student services budget, the first item you see is account for contracted services for guidance. And really what that is, I'll use, Kurt, I think, defined the term reallocation, it seemed like, right? He was the first one to really talk about it quite a bit here in our meeting, so you'll see that as we go through this as well. We combine two accounts here. These are guidance consultants, and it also supports direct services for students. So you see a $6,455.80 increase, which in fact, it's really just a reallocation. It is not an increase, because the next line you see in the summary is the subsequent lines that result in the reduction of $6,455.80. Moving on to the summary, supplies for 504 accommodations. Once again, this is a reallocation from one of our guidance line items, which you'll see subsequently as well, that we combined several guidance supply line items from the 610s. And this, what we did was really extract some of the money. We've already started some of this process. We actually had the second session of a significant training, a 3-part series with Drummond and Woodsum, our law firm. It's not exclusive to us, but it's a 3-part webinar where all of our counselors, some of our administrators, we have in excess of 20 people participating. You'll appreciate this as the budget committee. It was, I think it's $185 a person to register for the webinar. So rather than doing that, I just registered for the webinar, and we all come here and watch it together.
Fantastic.
So, you gotta save where you can, and
That's
that's an
right.
easy way to save, and it gives the opportunity to meet with folks and discuss it, so, but one of the things also, what we did was we took some of the money already this year to purchase the guidebooks. Drummond and Woodsum has a guidebook that has all the forms, and it had been updated, and the book that was being used here was prior to the update. So in 2018, it had been updated, but they had an older version than that, or we had an older version than that. Next line down, you see an increase again. We can combine several guidance accounts. So it appears as a $7,671 increase, but the subsequent lines on the summary, a decrease of $1,250, and the next line down, $6,465 decrease. Those amounts were reallocated to that $7,671 line. Going on to our third page of the summary, the account that is for books and periodicals for guidance. You see it is also another reallocation. Let me make sure I'm following along, because we have to find that reallocation line. For books and periodicals, so what it is a consolidation or a combining of those several account lines at the bottom of page 5 in your student services detail by object code. So the $225, 140, 260, 107. 180, is it the 185 above?
Yeah.
No, and the
And then the ma- and
$75 and then the $694 lines below. Our books and periodicals guidance, both of those for the $1,686 increase, all resulting in a 0 increase in the proposed budget for student services. So there's some reallocation, there's some reorganization, there were some sections removed from this, from what you've seen historically, but it still results in a net 0 increase.
Well, they were removed but put into the special education
Yes.
budget, so.
Yeah.
And like with the music budget, we are reevaluating to see what makes sense to have as a district-wide rather than individual schools. So there are services that we provide, that we use resources for the entire district, we don't have dedicated resources for schools necessarily. So those are the accounts that we're consolidating and making them district-wide, so we don't have to stay within one budget number for certain place or certain service.
Right, we want to be able to have that consistency of programs and services at all of our schools for all kids. And rather than working with the fluctuation of, depending on student enrollment, what one school might have acquired through a grant or something else, and we're looking to now have that same type of service or supply at another school. We want to be able to have that flexibility of those accounts, in a very general way, and really, in purchasing things as a district, especially for guidance and, other types of related services, nursing as well. Nursing historically is really something that should be, even though it's split up here, I do believe things have been done collectively, but then every time you're writing a purchase order, you're pulling from several different account numbers rather than just one account number. So we're looking to simplify that and make things more easily tracked.
Okay. All right, any questions from the committee on student services?
But
Catherine?
the transportation, the homeless transportation, wasn't that on the transportation budget also?
Yeah, we did pull out transportation. Did we forget that in the student services? I might have missed one. And we did pull that, and we thought about, do we show it to you all again? And we said, we don't want to duplicate that.
Yeah,
It'll
that's what
look
I
like
just-
it's
that
in the
was like-
budget twice.
It's like it was over budgeted.
Which it's
as it
not.
is.
The only reason why it's in these reports is these are the reports that directors use as well on a monthly basis to see where are against budget.
Okay.
So they do need visibility to those accounts. Like Chris said, I try to clean them for this meeting as much as I can, but these are the reports that they use on a monthly basis. So the student service coordinator needs to know where is she or he
Okay.
in transportation expenses. So these are the reports that they use on a monthly basis to compare budget to actual. So there are accounts that they overlap within these presentations, but we don't change the numbers.
Yeah, we'll make sure it's clean.
Yes, thank you.
I've got two quick questions. When you look at the grand total and then you look at the trends throughout the trend report throughout the year, is there an explanation for why the trends are so different? Does it just depend on COVID? Like when I look at this year for, let's call it 131,000, and then I see 2019 was only 95,000. Is it just because of the different, like reallocating the money, or is there?
I don't know about 2019, because that was really just prior.
Yeah.
Trending in special ed and student services is always difficult,
Okay.
right? Because it comes and goes, it's based on individual student needs, special ed more so.
Okay.
Student services, though, some of the things that go on,
It can
it's
change that much.
likely,
Okay.
yeah, it can change that much based on a single student.
Okay.
But
You can have one student that costs you $250,000 a year.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
For this year, but then next
But
year,
the
next
next
year,
year, if he
okay.
moves out of district, you don't have the 225.
or they
so-
move in and suddenly we've gotta cover that.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense.
I got another question. You have voted, but you don't, obviously, because the year's not finished, you don't have expended. But how is, are we on track for the point in time we're at, or?
we are, right now, we're not exceeding any areas at this time. Even the homeless transportation, which quite frankly, it's great that we budget for that here. Not everybody does budget for that. That is sort of one of those quote-unquote unfunded mandates, as only 4 communities in the state receive funds for McKinney-Vento support. We are not one of those school districts that receive any funding for it, so the fact that we have anything in a budget. The good and the bad news being we really don't have resources in the way of school bus drivers to support having bus transportation for students, especially to a variety of different locations. The good news is several families that we have that are needing supports under McKinney-Vento are available to transport their students, and we reimburse them the IRS mileage rate. It seems to be a bit of a benefit for them, given their circumstances, and it's a cost savings benefit for us, and merely by the fact that we just don't even have the availability of the resources to be able to provide for those students. It's all sort of working out okay at this time. It might be more of a challenge for the families than anything, but it's still working.
So that
And
could
that's
go to answer
keeping
your
us low.
question. We're
Yeah.
budgeting for it, but we're not spending the 25,000.
And if we were really to truly budget for it with respect to school bus, there's no way that the amount that we're budgeting would even come close to covering it.
Right.
You know. So,
Yeah, one more question, and maybe off topic, if it is, just don't have to answer it. I've noticed that there's so many kids being transported by car to and from school where the lines are, I know in Plastow, I've seen the line go all the way back to the railroad tracks, which is actually a safety issue on Elm Street, because there's no breakdown lane. And I've seen people trying to navigate going down one lane, going toward each other. But just for that, I don't know, is there any tracking of how many students actually use the bus versus how many students are budgeted to use the bus, so to speak? And is that reflected in the prices that we pay?
yeah. It's not, well, if we had a low enough student ridership, we would work with First Student, even though that we're contracted with them for a certain number of buses. In my experience, having worked with First Student for several years, they have been pretty agreeable to reducing by a bus, especially now that they struggle for drivers anyway. We are doing student ridership counts. I've asked them to do monthly student ridership counts, which is not typical. Usually it's quarterly, but we're looking for it monthly to see if we can't really get a good handle on how many students are actually riding. Then you have the complicating factor of school buses are used for the multiple levels, right? So we use X number of school buses for middle school and high school. And you have shorter route times for middle school and high school. You have fewer students on in middle school and high school. But as you all know, just prior to turning the clocks back, it was pretty dark out. And having students waiting, especially on main roads out in the dark, is always a challenge. So, October into this early part of November, it gets a little scary. And then it'll get a little scary for some folks again, December until February. So we like to keep shorter route times, so the students are getting out there later or as late as possible. And then you have those same buses are gonna go and pick up elementary students as well. So, it's always a challenge, right? Because you look at a high school bus a lot of times and there aren't a lot of students on those buses or on some buses, and then on other buses, they're really quite full. The fact that we have combined high school and middle school buses, that was done, last year or the year before, that's consolidated 2 years ago. So it is time to really look and see, are we going to be able to reduce by any number of school buses in the future? We have our contracts through 2023. We are looking to go to bid. We're looking to put out an RFP in December, really looking for a year and a half bidding process, because the reality is, if, for a school bus operation, the size of what we have, 27 large buses, I think, with, per student, to get anybody to come in and do that, the only way that they can bid and really come in and take that over is they would bid it out, they would gain they would look for the capital, and they would probably look to either, I don't know if they rent or own the site over here in Plastow, but they would look to basically take over their site. They would look to take over their drivers. They would look to, you know, you sort of come in and it's like a hostile takeover kind of thing. You take over that company there. You don't necessarily move them out and come in and start one new. So it's a matter of an organization like that to getting the capital in place to do that. For a student, I can tell you, it's been for sale for a couple of years. I believe it's getting close. It's a British company. They've been looking to sell off the North American Student Transportation Division. And at this point, I know that they're willing to sell it off in pieces, you know, because it's not been a big winner for them of late.
Yeah, and when we were looking, just seems like we just did this bid a few months ago to me, but when we bid it out the last time, there weren't companies that felt comfortable coming down here because they didn't have access to what do we call a garage space or
Yeah.
a lot space or whatever. And they're out of Concord. Well, the drivers aren't going back to Concord with those buses and then driving home, because we have a lot of local people that drive.
Yep.
It became, you know, it's not like there's 17 bus companies around. It's quite a narrow grouping.
Sounds like a monopoly.
It almost, I hate
Sort
to
of.
use that term, but there weren't, the bid cost for, I forget the company out of Bow or Concord, it was incredibly different.
Yeah, it might have been
So-
Durham.
It might have been.
Yeah, but that's who we use for our special ed
Right,
transportation.
the small, what do we call the small buses?
And they are interested, but
Is it also true, that we have to provide a seat for every kid, even if they're not riding the bus?
not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
That's what I was wondering, because
Because
I'm
that's
obligated to
been told to
transport,
us
like,
before.
some days I'll pick my kids up,
Yeah.
some days I won't, they still need that
They
spot
have a seat,
available.
they have a seat. So if she picks her kids up, but they ride on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, that seat's available for them the whole week. They can't suddenly say, oh, you can't get on the bus today because your seat's taken, you know, you don't have a reservation.
And
There
this
has to be a
influx of
seat.
driving parents maybe
Yeah.
have to do with the pandemic and from people working at home, so, you know, if we're gonna,
It's unpredictable
those
right now.
lines
I
a
mean,
long time.
it's always unpredictable, and that's why I asked them to do the monthly
Right.
yeah.
ridership counts. And you can look at history, but with the fluctuation in total student enrollments, it's really hard to tell. I do have a crystal ball, because oftentimes in budgeting, we say, well, we don't have a crystal ball. Well, I bought one several years ago, so I'll try and remember that
Excellent.
for,
Bring it
Good to
down.
know.
It should be here.
yeah, I know. It's in a
Just
tote with all my
bring
stuff.
it.
I moved out of Derry, so, you know, my wife would be very happy for me to bring some of those things here, because they're all in the garage.
Yeah, it brings up an interesting question. I thought about that same question about, is though we required to have a seat for every student, even though they may not ever use it? Is there a way to poll the parents to say, because they know whether the students ever intend to use it or
Yeah.
not, and then have a count, and then you could have at least another percentage, because there will be a
Yep.
time when they may need to take the bus because the car's down or something.
Yeah, you
So,
can,
yeah.
I had started to do this in Derry, we talked a lot about that too, and we can create a registration process, and we can add it to we actually did in Derry, we added it to the Power School registration, so it was another source of data.
Yep.
It wasn't always 100% accurate, as you said, you know, on Tuesdays and Thursdays, the kids might take the bus one week or the other. With high school, you know, I like to do the multiple ridership counts, because you have sports, you have clubs, you have theater, whatever going on. And there's great variance of
Right.
ridership from
But
one.
it takes some of the guesswork out of it. It helps you in the
Yep.
data.
Yep.
And one of the reasons I asked the whole question is, the busing is a huge expense.
Yes.
And I also look at it from another point of view. Buses riding around with only a few students in them is not good for the environment,
Oh, it's
because
not.
with the fuel prices going up, and those buses put out some good exhaust, that is really kind of a waste to do that.
But we are
From the
federally,
environment point of view.
no, we have to provide transportation.
Okay,
It's
sure.
not suddenly decide,
Yeah.
you know what, we're not gonna run that road, we're not gonna do May Ray Avenue anymore.
Yeah.
We're not gonna come up your road anymore. We decided. But we can't make that decision.
Right.
can decide not to provide school bus
For the 20
transportation
kids that live on Mayray.
Well, that's not,
for
what-
high school.
that's not
We're
what I'm asking.
You're not legally required to provide
So
school
sometimes
bus
the
for high
buses,
school.
that's right.
That's not what I'm asking. I'm just asking about that the buses are utilized. I
Yes,
didn't care about,
and
the
efficiently.
routes are all depending on what's needed.
Yeah.
And nobody has ever come up with Mayberry Avenue, by the way.
We
the
want to
end of the
work,
street.
yeah, we want to work with the bus company for the sake of efficiency, for cost, for environment, for, behavior.
Yeah.
There's a whole lot of discipline. I'm looking at Mr. Becquerez over there. He could tell you. Actually, the middle school more, with that consolidation, the middle school riders tend to sit on the buses after the high schoolers get off for about 10 to 15 minutes because the staff isn't available for the middle schoolers by contract right away. And so in the mornings, when they're waiting, there tends to be, a little bit more discipline, issues as far as discipline goes anyway, so.
Right, thank you for the answers.
You're welcome.
Excellent. Thank you, Chris. And will we be looking to you for special education as well?
You will.
Well, I have one thing.
Okay.
It's not a big deal, but there's a little bit of a discrepancy of 80 cents between the two totals of requested and voted.
Oh, yeah. Between the summary and the details.
Yeah.
That might be my vision.
Right?
Yep, that would be my vision. I
80
apologize.
cents, yeah, sorry.
I saw a zero, an 8 as a 0.
Yeah, I figured, I just thought
Thank
I'd
you.
point it out, no problem.
Gotta have the books balanced.
Yep.
All right, special education.
Here we go. All right, looking at the summary of proposed budget for special education, a proposed budget of $4,799,432. I'm gonna look at the last page right now and see if I missed an 8 or anything like that. Nope. Okay. The first line item, professional education services, tutors, that is an increase. That is not a reallocation. So, we've always been providing tutoring for students, both, identified and not identified students. You will have the requirement to provide tutoring for students once they are, placed in a facility or out of school for more than 10 days. We're legally obligated to make tutoring available to them. So maybe, if I were in a hospital, I might be getting a cancer treatment or, be at Boston Children's for something. Most hospitals do provide services and supports as far as academic tutoring goes, and they work with our schools to make sure that they're working on appropriate education materials whenever possible. Psychiatric hospitalizations, that's a requirement as well, and so over the past decade, we've seen an increase in the types of hospitalizations as well as needs for tutoring. In addition to that, with special education, tutoring is oftentimes used to achieve what's known as soft FAPE. FAPE is a free appropriate public education. That's, all students are entitled to it, but the IDEA, Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, supports it greatly. And so when students are suspended, if their suspensions either cumulatively by a pattern or a single episode of suspension exceeds 10 days, we're required to provide services. And oftentimes tutoring is that service that we have to provide a minimum of 2 hours a day, along with other types of services that the student might have in their IEP. So $7,500 is a very modest amount, but we're looking to get a new line item in there. We can tell you that we're currently spending that money already, and there is a bit of an offset. With students that are currently, we're having difficulty finding placements for students. That is definitely part of the pandemic, just like we are struggling to have have teacher and assistant resources in our schools, so too are private special education programs. So we do have students that are not in programs that we would expect them to be in typically, and so we're creating soft FAPE here within the district. And so we're looking to build capacity by developing more programs as well to support those students in the future. The next line is an increase, and this also is in itself an increase, not a reallocation, of $9,915. We had part of a special education audit that occurred with the Department of Education, looking at our compliance and a number of factors and a number of indicators in our procedural efforts. And, excuse me, the Department of Education was really clear, saying we needed to make some corrective actions. And so in order to really support those corrective actions, we need to provide quite a bit of professional development to a lot of our staff, administrative staff, special education staff, general education staff. And so that's also, it's a pretty modest amount to provide a whole lot of professional development next year. Contracted services, we did some movement around here with contracted services. This also is an increase in the proposed budget of $138,100. Since, again, some of those students, some of this is money following students from, if they were in a placement, we've had several students who, as I just said, aren't actually in their placements. They were receiving their related services through, from those schools, and that would come in the way of tuition. Now, you would say, well, won't there be an offset in tuition? Ideally, there would be. However, when we get there, I can talk in more detail about that as well, but we've seen tuition increases. One school, for example, I think that their cost was $58,000 a student. We got a letter this summer that said each of the students' tuition increase will, each of the students' tuition will increase by $75,000. We have 6 or 7 students there. I mean, and it's ranging. Historically, you would account for about a 4% increase in each out-of-district placement tuition. It's just all over the place. And that's true of the related services as well. We're seeing rates that, you know, just 3 years ago, $75, $85, $90 an hour for speech and language therapy, occupational therapy, physical therapy, vision services and things. Vision services and hearing services have just absolutely gone through the roof because there really aren't the providers. It's a simple case of economic supply and demand. There are virtually, I mean, the state at one point was offering to train anybody who wanted to become a vision specialist. They would cover the cost of your whole master's. That was just a few years ago. And we're seeing those rates now that were $70, $80, $90 an hour, they're $200 an hour. So there's an increase in rate, and there's also an increase in frequency of services, and part of that's due to the pandemic, where you had students that weren't getting services for nearly 2 years now, that may have regressed, or, you know, there's a tremendous need with contracted services like behavior specialists, BCBAs, board-certified behavior analysts. We have preschoolers and kindergartners that have never been in a structured setting or learning setting whatsoever that are now in school that we need to really spend a lot of time supporting. Yes?
Do we have some sort of projection that may indicate that the services will be increased as we learn how much some of our students have fallen behind due to the pandemic? Is that something we should
Like
be
a real
concerned about?
scientific, mathematical.
No, but I mean, you know, with like the
Yeah.
iReady, all those test results coming back, they're
Yeah.
indicating that students have fallen behind, you
Yes.
know, couple grade levels, you know, is this something that at some point the money will be used out of here to kind of implement some resources to get these kids caught up, whether it be special services or not? Like I know some, you know, there's the WIN program, you know, stuff like that. I mean, is there ways of is there any indications that this is gonna cost these amounts of money to catch these kids up?
Yeah, I don't think we have a
Structured
direct correlation of dollar to minute accounting or type of service, but absolutely, this is money that will go to that, especially, specifically for the identified population, those identified for special education or in need of special education services. We'll be using 20% of the ESSER funds for learning loss for non-identified students as well. There's funding through Title I that will be used to support students' learning loss as well. But yeah, that's gonna be an ongoing catch-up piece. We always needed catch-up anyway, right? You know, I mean, if we could look at our assessment data and say, oh, look, 98% of all of our students are achieving, we would have a small problem to wrestle with, how are we gonna get that other 2 or 4%? How are we gonna really get them? It's far more significant than that. It's, you know, you're looking at the 25 to 35, 38% of our students have for several years needed that additional catch-up instructional time. And likely we'll see even more of that, yes, in the next 2 years. And it could be longer than that.
Yeah.
Two quick questions, and my first one, you just said, so would you say about 25 or 30% of the student population here is on an IEP or
About 22%.
22%?
Yep.
And then when I look at the budget, and I just don't understand what it means when I see almost 3.2 or 3.4 million in tuition, and what does it mean when you say out-of-district placement? What is, I just don't know what that means.
Sure, you're on page 3, right?
Yeah, when I was looking at all those totals, like what
Sure.
is?
Out-of-district placements are private approved special education programs. Students attending those programs, and my understanding is, I think we have about 52 or so students attending out-of-district placements. So they are just that, they're programs, they're private approved programs outside of our district, most of which are in Massachusetts. We're fortunate to be close to the Massachusetts border and access a lot of the collaborative programs. Massachusetts has a system where, say, 10 school districts band together, and they develop collaborative programs. They all throw money in the pool, and they develop a program for students with autism, one for students with emotional disturbance, for students with learning disabilities, for students with intellectual disabilities. So they have a variety of program supports and a continuum of services available to their students outside of their regular classrooms, and they open those up for us to tuition students in.
Okay.
What we want to do is start to develop, and I know we had them here years ago, but we're really taking our time to do, we're sort of rushing it, but, you know, we're looking at really, you know, analyzing the information that we have, the data that we have, look at what our student needs are. It's going to take some time to develop programs to broaden the continuum of services available to our kids to keep them in our schools, in our district. But that's gonna come at a cost, and really it takes time and some, you really have to look at a way of designing it and making some commitment up front, right? Because you can't just reallocate all of the funds, because there's the whole element of getting agreement and making sure that we have the appropriate supports in place to support the kids. But the good news is, what we do have is space. And historically, that's what has impeded districts from being able to develop programs. So where we have space, we want to be able to look at utilizing that space, develop programs and supports. Ultimately, it is more beneficial to the kids not having to leave their community, remaining in their community, being part of their own schools, or at least their own district. And it's beneficial to our staff in expanding their learning opportunities for understanding how to provide for all students. And it's incredibly beneficial to our students who might not be accessing the programs for their, you know, their learning and benefit for participating with students with disabilities. And it creates a lot of opportunities for a lot of different things for all of our kids.
Great, thank you.
Yep. Okay. So, yeah, we contracted services was the one I just finished prior to that, correct?
Yep.
The increase of $50,000 for tuition to private and other preschool, that is a reallocation. How exciting. So what we did was, we're moving $50,000 from the line item below, which is tuition in private special education program and other for elementary. So it's really just reallocating $50,000 for preschool supports. And that subsequent one is a decrease in the elementary line. This $2,420 is an increase in the special ed travel it's a reallocation, I'm sorry, it's a reallocation of travel reimbursement for staff attendance at workshops, covered by the subsequent two decreases of 1,020 and 1,400. And that's for mileage reimbursement for staff participation in professional development opportunities, primarily locally. We're not flying all over Creation. We're sticking around New Hampshire mostly. An increase, we're on to supplies now, and there is another reallocation that presents as an increase of $12,158. You see the subsequent line of special ed supplies general with a decrease of $5,866. And on the next page as well. My time's up?
You're done.
Yeah, all right, as long as you approve it. $4,050 is the next decrease, and then the final decrease that of reallocated funds into that aforementioned line is the $1,408 reallocation or decrease. Now we're back to increases. So this increase is part of what the State Department of Education Bureau of Student Support, which is our Bureau of Special Ed, what they used to be at the State of New Hampshire Department of Ed, who monitors us for compliance. Excuse me, some of the recommendations they made included having some increased resources in the way of software supports. Goal book is one, so writing measurable IEP goals is something that is a very difficult thing to do. It sounds easy, it's not. I've been doing this for 30 years, and it's constantly one of those things that you need to revisit and support staff in being able to do and do well. And I will be perfectly frank that sometimes the folks monitoring from the state, it depends who's monitoring it and who's reading it. One person might say it looks good this way and another that way, but there has been increasing consistency, easy for me to say, increasing consistency in understanding what the appropriate elements are of those measurable goals. And Goalbook is a software that really helps staff to do that more consistently than if left to our own devices. We also have iPads for a lot of students to support student learning. And Chromebooks as well, that we need to have those software applications, some of which are used in the school and others of which are used when the students are at home to help support their learning at home and increase learning opportunities. And then the $1,000 increase below that has more to do with students with vision and hearing impairments. And there's some really specific software that goes along with supporting their devices that they use to support either their hearing or their access to materials due to their vision impairment. And I think that's it for those. Any other questions?
Looking at the voted versus expended, going back the last couple of years, the big swings for 2020 and 2021, can you kind of assume that those were more COVID pandemic related?
Well, I think it could be both, right? It could be COVID-related and also what we were explaining before, that with the special education students, you never know if you're gonna have 50 or
Right.
you're gonna have 30, if each of them is gonna be $100,000 a year or 30.
Right,
So it's just,
okay.
in one specific year, you can have 5 students at $125,000 a year pop, and then the next year, 4 of them move out of district, you're down
Right.
$500,000.
Which is another great reason for having in-district programming. Your variance and your fluctuations level off a little bit, right? Just like a general education classroom. Whether I have 21 students in there, or if I have 26 students in there, there's technically a different cost per pupil. However, our total cost is essentially the same,
Yep.
whether they're 21 or 26. So when you're looking at specialized instruction and special programs, whether you have 6 or 5 even students in there, or 8, your cost per pupil's a little bit higher, but it's nothing compared to what you, it's typically, it's, you know, for the most expensive programming, it's typically 50% of the cost, 52 to 56% of the cost with the many programs that I've run, and those were at the high end, compared to other programs that are about 20% of the cost of an out-of-district placement. And again, with increased opportunity and benefit to all students and all people in the education community.
Right. And honestly, what you're saying plays out. I mean, I was looking at this the wrong way. I mean, we were under budgeted by $500,000
Right.
in 2020, and then over budgeted by, you know, what, 700,000 the next year. So
It just,
there's no crystal ball.
I'll bring it
Well,
next
you
time.
said you
I've gotta
have
bring it.
one, so-
I have like a Swami kind of hat thing too. I don't think I'll wear that.
Any other questions for Chris?
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
You don't call me if, you know,
You have
I'll
to
be
leave, yeah.
driving for 20 minutes probably, so please don't hesitate to call if something comes up. Thank you all.
All right,
Thank you.
Well
Appreciate
done.
it. Thank you.
See you at the game on Saturday.
You will. Awesome. Come by the pre-grill for
do
our specialty
that.
VIP
I
items
will do.
at no cost.
Chris is a great cook.
Thank you.
Really good food.
All right. Next up on our agenda is Timberlane Regional High School.
Good night. Thank you.
have a good night.
Good night, Chris.
Thank you. Good night.
Welcome.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you all for having me here. At a time, I'd like to thank you guys in advance for your support. I've seen a lot of you guys, first of all, you've toured the school, you guys have come in. We see you at events, and those type of things are incredibly important. They're special to both the staff of the school and also the students, so thank you very much in advance for that. The budget that we're going to propose to you guys, I can tell you that the process was different this year, even though I'm new, it still was different this year. On top of that, in the past, we had a number of deans, academic deans, that were really the go-betweens to make the budget with, in consultation with the staff members. Those deans are they're no longer here. Now we have a curriculum coordinator, and we have positions called CIAs in the departments. So there were a lot of people having a more active role on the budget this year, but it was also their first year of doing this. I can tell you I was supported incredibly by members of the SAU, Diane Nye and Patty Mangini. They were really the organizers for this whole process. So, you know, a lot of hands were involved in this. So if everyone did a good job, that was them. If it's messed up, it's me. So. A couple of things that definitely changed this year, just in advance, as you look through the budget items, you'll see that the music budget has been moved to the district-wide budget, so that'll cause a fluctuation. That's definitely there. You'll also see the health PE budget, that has also gone out of the school budget, and that was presented by Angela Fantasia, the athletic director who oversees that department. Okay. The proposed budget in here is $708,736. The current year is $738,380, so it appears like a $29,644 decrease. Okay, but again, other pieces got taken out and went to district budget, so I do want to make that statement. As far as to talk about anything from the music budget, that's really done by the Fine Arts Director, that's going to be Kirk Schweiss. And if it's about the health PE budget, again, that was proposed by Angela Fantasia. Okay. I can go through any large increases or decreases if that is
Yeah, that'd be
appropriate at
great.
this
Just like kind of through the summary is
Follow the
fine.
summary.
Okay, great. We already spoke about the music budget, so that one's there. The next one is a decrease of 2175 for the English department. They're printing a lot less newspapers. They've put a lot more online on the website, so we've seen a decrease in the amount that's necessary for that budget. Okay, as technology has emerged, we've emerged with that. General high school supplies, this is an increase of $2,086. We're seeing a lot of classroom chairs. Now, sometimes people say, well, why isn't this in a department budget? Because the reality is, a lot of the chairs, you might have a classroom, like 2 chairs are needed in this department, 3 in this department, 4 in this. Some of the chairs that we had purchased in the past, they were kind of the material that over a period of time, kind of like a lot of the car seats, the, pleather, if you will, that start to rip, and then the durability is not there. As you can see, we're looking more to get the chairs that are, plastic, more durable, proper. So that's where that increase really comes from. You see a decrease in the industrial technology department. Over the last 2 years, the inventory had been built up specifically because you had kids outside not doing as much of the hands-on items. So it is our belief that through the decrease, we are still going to be able to properly supply the department with being more conscious financially for this year. Okay? I'll pass the music one. The science department, this $5,718, we're looking at for lab tables. Again, it goes throughout different areas. And we're also seeing an increase in dissections that we're looking to do. We're looking to dissect specimens on a larger scale. Many of us remember doing the frogs probably in biology. Now we're looking to go into things such as a shark, okay, where you get it, and specimens on a larger scale. They do cost more, but they are more beneficial for the students in their learning. And this is an opportunity that we have. Okay. The business department has a decrease in books, 2421. They're just a lot of them. The business department is shifting to, okay, we're likely not to need these new books this year. We're utilizing the different platforms, the technology to help them in that process. Okay, and later on you'll see software will go up in different departments because of that. Okay, foreign language is looking to utilize grammar books, so they're getting about 200 of them for the students, and that's going to be an increase of around 1,800. That's what's creating that increase. And math department has a decrease in books. The cost is a savings of $2,250 as well. Okay. Science department, you see a decrease of $1,947. Science department has a decrease in the necessity of books, but you'll see it again on the software side. So with software, what you will see as I go through this, they used to have the software lumped into one area, and now they've been branched out into a number of different areas. So you'll see a large decrease in software in one area, and then you'll see other areas like business, science, and STEM, though they will be broken into individual ones. So kind of explain that as best I can. So the software, the business department, because of this shift, that you are now seeing a $4,594 increase in the business software department. And what you see underneath that is the decrease of $7,755 because instead of all being in one, now it's been broken up into 3. Okay? The flip side, this increase right here with the math department of $34.45 is because the software line is now into the math department. Right? And the same deal with the science department of $5,300. So kind of those 4 are go together, and it ends up being an increase of a couple $1,000s in software overall. All right. So the next increase is $2,699. The journalism class is going to need some cameras. And they're gonna start repurposing and utilizing desks. They're gonna go from standing desks versus the sitting desks. A lot of people are transitioning to that. There's a $1,933 increase, industrial technologies. Durable products get used over a period of time. You do need to replenish the goods. You're talking, as you can see, you're talking about some jigs, some cutters, and different saws, and that's what's creating that increase. General high school equipment, so this is an increase of $1,618. We are currently in the process of updating our cafeteria with an area, and we're trying to make the space that one that students want to go to, want to be at, and, where you've had the old style cafeterias for students where they're cafeterias from like the 1960s, 70s, the ones that many of us have experienced. Trying to make it an area that's a comfortable place that students want to go to, that students want to hang out, that students want to utilize. It also allows a cafeteria that you can utilize for more presentation. We have used the CAF in the past for that, so we're updating the CAF, and this is part of the process. It's a long-term process that we're kind of looking at there. Okay. We are looking to replace 10 sewing machines, and so that's the cost of the $35.53. All right. In industrial tech, they're looking to get a cabinet. It's the germicidal, or it's the eyewear germicidal cabinet. Sterilizes, allows for cleansing so that they can use it. Specifically, when you have 6 classes over a 2-day period of time, that's where you're looking at here. You have a decrease in social studies department because they're not requesting any new equipment, and that's of $1,350. This is the largest increase, is in the vocational education. Students from Timberlane are given the opportunity to go to different CTE centers, Pinkerton Academy, Salem, all right? There are more programs now currently being offered at the CTE centers, which our students are permitted and encouraged to take. All right. We have had an increase in the number of students who have been taking these courses over a period of time. So just to give you an idea, I just pulled some quick data. In 2017, we had 58 students. 2018, that went to 70. In 19, it went to 86. All right, last year remained at 86. This year, we're up to 91. Okay, or the 2021 school year, up to 91. We are seeing the trend that if every single student currently in the program, the juniors and sophomores who are in the program, we could be looking all the way up to 114 to 120.
Wow.
So there's more opportunities, okay? And there's been more classes. If you look at the way the budget's worked, every year it seems we've not budgeted a proper increase amount, and so then you're stuck. We know the students are taking them. We're talking about getting the students college and career ready, and this is certainly a portion of that. So if that's the case, we felt that it was necessary to budget for that properly. Okay.
So let me ask a question on that. So similar to what Chris was saying about special education, and Maria, this is probably more for you, bringing them in here as much as we can. Is there any talk about increasing the CTE that we offer here locally as opposed to, or do we, I mean, we have some CTE, but not, we farm it out to Pinkerton and Salem and have been doing that for a long time, but has there ever been any talk about us building up a program here and keeping them local?
Not that I am aware of.
Okay.
I don't know if
The-
it's
It was discussed, but.
I mean, he said the magic word, space, right? We have space, so it would just seem, for the
Well-
same reasons you would do it for special ed.
I'm not
You-
sure that we will have the facilities or the space. Maybe Carl can speak better to that. I don't think.
Sorry to pause
Oh,
here.
that's quite all right. I'm here for a reason. So I just came from Summersworth School District where they recently, 2016, did a CTE upgrade, and it's a multi-million-dollar upgrade because it's not just the space, you have to have specialized space, especially if you're talking about HOSA, Health and Human Services. If you're talking about auto mechanics, you need a whole auto mechanic garage, 16 bays, lifts, everything like that, which you can usually get funding from like auto dealerships or auto manufacturers can give some stuff toward that. But it's more specialized stuff, so it's not just throwing them in a classroom, it's gonna be very well, computer programming, they have to have computers and digital media, they have to have cameras, TVs, I don't know what we have currently available, but it's more than just finding space and bringing them back in.
Okay.
It's a great opportunity to get that into the buildings, but it is an
Long-term-
extreme, it's a
long-term
long-term
plan, yeah.
plan, maybe see.
Yeah, no, it's encouraging that there's an uptick, I mean, but, if there's a demand, hopefully down the road, we can give them a home closer that, not have to send them off and do it here.
So this money is for sending those kids over to either Pinkerton or Salem, it's for transportation, et cetera,
It's the cost to run the programs. for
cost
that.
to run the program.
It's just
And
the
again, it's
tuition.
not it's an increase based on what we've seen as the trends. If you look at last year to this year, I think we were, like 16,000, and we already have an increase this year.
Yeah,
Yeah, if you see that the account is in the middle of page 4.
Yeah.
And if you see the trend, in 2019, it was $91,000, in 2020 was 109, in 2021 was 135. So,
So this
Go ahead.
this increase or this cost is just what it cost us to have them attend. But how much of this is actually their transportation to get there for these
no,
classes?
the transportation is separate.
What in the ballpark is the add-on to transportation because of this program?
I don't know. We have two current buses that go, is what we're looking at. So there's two buses that go at two different times.
and we reimburse the students that don't take the bus.
Yeah.
right?
So we
drive
have
themselves.
students that drive themselves, we reimburse them. The state actually reimburses us for the transportation to get the kids there.
Okay, because I was trying to get a perspective on what it costs to do it here versus what it costs to bring them there, but you gotta look at the whole picture, not just
Yeah.
the enrollment cost, but also the transportation is all part of it, so
The state
it's reimbursed.
reimburses us not 100%, but it's I think it's like 75% of the cost.
Well, we've really under budgeted that every year.
Every year, I know, that's what I was looking at.
I'm highly in favor of vocational education, even though I was a biology teacher and did dissections of sharks. But we need to make that more available to more kids. Getting kids to not necessarily think college, but career, whether it's HVAC, electrical, plumbing, hairdressing, health-related fields, to encourage them to go there and to make it as easy for kids, like, for instance, who are in band, to go to CTE and not have to make a choice, I can't be in the band anymore. Can't be a musician if I wanna go over to Salem and learn to be an HVAC. There's a lot of moving pieces here to get this all happen. The fact that we have Pinkerton and Salem as options is great, because we didn't for a long time. So,
And maybe the increase in classes you're saying they're offering, are they offering them at different times now? Because I know for my daughter, she was told she cannot attend, even though she was accepted, because it's at the same time as special ed.
That's right.
So like if you had band at the same
Yeah, if you
time.
have a
So
kid in
there are
special
more
ed,
children that are interested that are not
That's right.
eligible
it
because
just
of the
doesn't all
timing.
fit in their schedule.
The CTE classes naturally cause an issue, and maybe it's good, and this is my previous job, there was the same deal. We had a CTE center in there. Your travel time, they take up a certain amount of time so that it doesn't just block off maybe one class or one block, but it could be two.
three.
So there's things that do take into account. As far as the cost of a CTE center, they are huge costs. There are, grants, Perkins, I believe, is a lot of the loans, but, or grants that are out there, but they are substantial in how they run, and the cost per pupil can be extreme, but it is incredible opportunities. In general, your per pupil of what you can have in a classroom is smaller, making the cost per pupil go up in those type of centers. I had some experience with understanding that.
Yeah, I'm with Sue Sherman. I really think the CT programs are a way to go. College is not for everyone. What we're supposed to prepare kids for is to be successful in life, and different different students will take different paths, and one of these is to go to a vocation, is one of those paths, and they're vocations that are needed as well.
Please continue, but I love this topic, and thank you for.
No problem. I'm gonna go past, okay. The next one is the bottom of the next page. You'll see it's a NEASC evaluation. It's a decrease of $2,000. They're not having a NEASC committee come to us this year, so the funds for that is not needed.
Did that come out of my mouth?
And then the next one is, again, it's a budgeting for something we are hoping for, maybe not, but we're anticipating in-person travel activities for our students to be able to go to activities in the future, more next year than they are at the current time because of the current situation. So that's why that is budgeted and allocated the way it is.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions? Good job.
Very nicely done, Mr. Vaca.
Great job. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, John.
You have a good day, or good night, thank you.
Thanks, John.
All right, next up, we have, Ms. Alaire.
Sandy Alera.
Hello, welcome.
Hi, here's our veteran.
It's nice to see you all. Hi, I'm Sandy Allaire. I'm the Executive Director of Curriculum and Professional Learning. I'll be presenting both of those budgets. And so some of the themes that you've been hearing tonight from Mr. Kellen and Mr. Vacarese, you'll hear some repetition and overlapping on sort of the approach. So I'm going to start in no particular order, if you're okay, with professional learning, which is up slightly overall, an increase in the annual budget of $13,496. Overall, I think when we look at professional learning in last year's budget and we're looking at trends, last year was a tough year to predict because we shifted in March of 2020, as you know, from on-site professional development for our educators to completely online professional learning due to the pandemic. So the cost associated with that, so if we were bringing people in, presenters, for example, trainers, we would typically pay travel. Rarely did we put people up overnight, but it could be mileage, it could be people, the cost of bringing him here. We didn't incur those costs, and so some of our spending trends you'll see might be down from last year. Now that we are back to in-person professional development and we're budgeting for that, there are some increased needs that I'll speak to, but some of those increases are associated with some of those shifts that we're making to be back in person with our educators to support their professional growth. So I'm just going to go through, if you will. I'll go item by item in the summary, but I'm happy to speak about other lines if you have questions. So the first one is for tuition reimbursement for secondary level. And again, this was decreased due to a spending trend analysis. This line most specifically is used when we have programs mostly at our high school, but some at the middle school level that require certification of teachers or certain levels of training. A couple of those I gave you examples of. One would be the advanced placement program through the College Board. Teachers that teach our AP classes at the high school are required typically to go to a week-long training program to be certified to teach the course that we offer at the high school. And so there is a cost associated with that, and we fund that cost for them because we are, of course, looking to help them to be well prepared to teach our students in those classes. Another one would be Project Lead the Way. That does require specific training and certification. So that is that line, and due to anticipated cost, that is slightly down from $13,000 to $10,000 with a decrease of $3,000. The next line, and bear with me because there's this might be a convoluted explanation on your sheet, so it would make more sense if I try to better explain this. You heard from Mr. Kellen that I think we, in all of our departments, were making a concerted effort with Maria to do a better job at making sure that our lines are properly placed in our budgets. And so I oversee these two budgets. They've been closely connected for years prior to me assuming my role here, similar to special ed and student services. I have found myself over the past couple of years that there were certain lines that are specific for professional learning that had been misplaced in the curriculum budget. And for that year, or for those cases, for many past years, those lines were funded at $0 or $1 that carried over year to year to year. So this was the case with this situation. So this line that you see right here, there's an $8,000 increase from 0 to 8,000. There's a bit of a history to this because I looked to make that change a year ago when I came to this committee. And at the time, we had an elementary line for in-service professional staff, professional development, that was funded, I believe it was actually 18,000. I think that's a typo here. I think I put 20, but I think it was 18,000 the previous year. And we had this line, it was in the curriculum budget, funded at 0. So to better allocate those two lines, we moved this line into the proper budget, professional learning, and I split funded between those two lines. So that 18,000 was split up between those two. In your work to dig into the budget last year to try to find some funding sources in other lines, this was one of the lines that was cut down to 0. So this secondary line was moved over, was cut down to 0, which, because of the effort to distribute funding, meant that we were about 50% down in our ability, in our total cost of professional learning for elementary and secondary, if that makes sense. So this is an effort to put that money back where it belongs in the secondary line with no change in the elementary line. But a bit of a history, but I wanted to make sure you fully kind of understood. There are some shifting parts in this whole explanation. So I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them, but that money is needed. The elementary line was, we fully expended that already for our year. And so we're finding other places to try to make transfers, but it is needed in this line, so. Okay. Do you have any questions about that?
No, for the record, we were trying to say something else.
I know you did, and I appreciate it.
Yes, thank you.
And I know exactly the rationale, and we very much appreciate the effort, and so.
Thank you.
Please don't, yeah. Okay. So the next line, one of the things that we've done this year is I was able to sit in on all building budget presentations to Dr. Cochran, to Maria, to Mr. Kellen. We all sat in and we talked with building principals about where they are funding their own professional development for themselves as administrators, for their own professional growth. We adopted an approach where they have put some money, not a lot, but some money in their professional learning lines for their professional growth. And I've decreased my funding for administrative professional development. We used to allocate $1,000 per administrator. And you'll see there are multiple lines. We have assistant principals and principals, directors, coordinators. So some of these lines, again, are reflective of a cost difference of $1,000 per allocation per admin to $500. And that money will be specifically used for district design professional development that we do monthly with our full admin team. We meet the first Tuesday of every month. We have 3-hour professional development sessions with our administrative team. So although these monies are allocated across multiple lines, it's all filtering in to fund those monthly sessions. And so it's sort of, this is reflective of conversations that we had with principals to better utilize and budget our monies for professional growth for admin. So this one right here, you'll see in-service for secondary principals is down from 2,000 to 1. A little farther down, I'm just going to skip down, because you'll see for in-service assistant principals at the elementary and secondary levels, those are also down $2,000 for elementary assistant principals and $3,000 for secondary assistant principals respectively. So the one that I kind of skipped over that was in between there, in-service professional development committee at the secondary level, this was another one of those lines that was misappropriated. And so in my effort to reallocate things appropriately, I'm looking to allocate across both secondary and elementary and to provide more equity in funding for the levels. So this decrease, we're down from 3,000 to 1, which is a $2,000 decrease. And it's also through an analysis of spending trend over the past years. Okay, the large increase in this budget is for professional services for professional development. So I know Mr. Kellen spoke a little bit about some of the training that we're looking at in the special education department. In our regular education department, for all of our staff, we have a lot of new initiatives. Some of them are tied to the strategic plan. There are certain topics in the strategic plan that are itemized that we should be looking to train our teachers in. But then as a result of the pandemic, we've seen, and not just us, districts around the state, I think nationally, there's a lot of talk about needs to train our teachers in understanding mental health challenges that their students may be facing, in how to best integrate social and emotional learning into their classes in a way that is deeply connected with academics and not taking away from it. And so there's been a heightened need to bring people in who have expertise in these very specific areas to come and train our teachers. And so there's an increased cost with that. So when I talked a little bit about last year with the pandemic, the decrease because we weren't bringing people in, we're now back in a place where we are looking to bring some people who have expertise in very targeted areas to best support our staff and their needs and ultimately our students. So that cost is, again, reflective of that. But this was another line. So originally, the request in this line for last year was $20,000, and it was dropped to $10,000 in late December by the Budget Committee. So that increase, it is $18,000, but if you look at the expenditures over the past 2 years, it's fairly in line with the costs that we've incurred. So, okay. All right, I'll keep going if you have no questions. All right, travel, we have a slight increase in elementary and a decrease just below that in secondary. Again, that was due to an effort to allocate across both levels. One of those lines was carrying $1, whereas the other had all of the funding for travel. And so this was really an effort to split between the two of them, which is why you'll see the change. And then dues and fees, we have a reduced number of administrators across the district. And so this is sort of looking at an anticipated reduction, slight, it's $1,500, but in the total cost of dues and fees that are associated with our administrative staff, so.
Thank you for collaborating to the dollar challenge.
Yes, thank you, Sandy. Any questions for Sandy?
Nice job.
All right.
No? Okay.
No? Thank you very much.
Okay, so we'll move on to curriculum then, and both budgets are closely connected, which is why I think you'll see things that had been in the wrong spot. Our curriculum budget, you'll see it's a $91,000 and $564.70 decrease. The easiest way to explain that is that we've had a shift away from traditional textbook print resources, although we still use them. But I think every year that I've come to this committee, it's been one of my talking points, is that we've been progressively decreasing the cost in our textbook lines because very rarely are we having conversations with teachers about purchasing traditional textbook programs and 7-year licenses. And instead, we're looking at a lot of online resources to support learning, sometimes through programs, but sometimes they're on a smaller scale. So that is one aspect of this. The other piece is that as a district, we've been able to leverage some of our funding from the federal government connected to COVID relief. And so the ESSER II grant, which I'll speak more to when we get to that item, we were able to purchase a new assessment and instructional support program. It's called iReady. And that's both an assessment tool, it's a universal screener, which gives us great data on where our students are at grade level, against grade level standards. And it allows us to assess, and I know you were talking earlier about learning loss. It's not a be-all and end-all, but it is an important data point that we now have across grades K-8, and that our teachers have access to. And then the second part of that program is called the Instructional Personalized Pathways Program, which allows us to better personalize learning in both math and reading for students based on where those students are at in their progression of learning. We were able to fully fund that license through ESSER 2, which allowed us to reassess some other programs that we were using and kind of packaging together, if you will, and discontinue some of those moving forward because of the purchase of iReady. So I'll go through that item by item, but that's kind of the overview of this budget. So curriculum development and administration, the first decrease at the elementary level, we're dropping that from $15,000 to $10,000. That's a $5,000 decrease, and that is the same for secondary. We have moved away from a pretty intense period of curriculum development. I know Mrs. Sherman was on Curriculum and Assessment Committee for years when we were every meeting reviewing curriculum documents and developing them and bringing them to the school board. We've developed our curriculum. It's an ongoing process, but we're no longer incurring larger costs connected to the development of curriculum. We've shifted more to implementation, which is why you'll see increased costs on professional learning to support our teachers. So these decreases follow a spending trend analysis and also just conversations connected to anticipated work that we have with our teachers over the next year. So those are the first two items on the summary sheet. The next one, supplies, again, elementary curriculum development supplies, and just below that, secondary instructional supplies. We have a decrease of $1,500 in the elementary line and $2,000 in the secondary line. Again, because I had the ability to sit in and meet with all of the principals regarding their budget development, I was able to get a better handle on their needs at the school level and what they put in their budgets to support teachers with regard to instructional supplies and needs. So this reduction, we're not carrying a lot in those lines anymore. I think that these lines used to carry $20,000, $30,000 each. And we've dropped that significantly because we're funding more appropriately at the building level. So that is those two lines. Again, I spoke about textbooks. This is a $25,000 decrease in secondary textbooks. I think for years there was a tendency, so the district textbook line has been used. The practice that we have is that if it is a new textbook resource, that textbook through policy goes through Curriculum Assessment Committee. It is vetted. We have a process. It's usually a year-long process. We vet it. It goes to the board. If the board approves the resource, the first year of implementation, the cost of that textbook would be in the district curriculum budget. So this line that you see that I decreased. From their replacement textbooks, which you just heard about some textbooks in the high school line, or budget rather, that's where those are funded. So because we can anticipate if we plan to bring any larger programs or if we're researching any textbook programs to better finance and budget for this line, we've dropped that because through conversations at the building levels, we're not anticipating next year that we'll be bringing anything. But should we need to, that line would go back up. But this, again, is another line that used to carry $50,000 annually, sort of as a just in case, right? Because we were in the practice of using textbooks much more frequently. So we're trying to be much more purposeful in our planning and anticipating ahead of time. And so we feel comfortable dropping that significantly to $5,000. So the next line is books and info resources. Again, there is, this is an elementary line. And this is not, there is some technology connected to this, but the large bulk of this increase is connected to a guided reading program that we began to implement at the elementary level in this year's budget. We budgeted last year and have since purchased materials for kindergarten through grade 3 classrooms across the district. In next year's budget, we have budgeted for materials for grades 4 and 5, along with an updated assessment program that goes along with those guided reading resources. The assessment program that we have for grade K-5 is significantly outdated. And so we're looking to bring in that updated, most up-to-date assessment to align with the new resources that we're implementing. So that is an increase of just over $5,000 in that line. Okay, elementary info access fees. So this decrease is significant. It is a $54,000, almost $55,000 decrease. And again, this was largely due to our ability to use ESSER funding to purchase iReady and the ability to discontinue some other programs that really were replicated through the functionality of iReady. So, and just a heads up that we were able to secure a 3-year license for iReady through that grant funding, which is wonderful, but that means that a few years from now, I will be back and I anticipate an increase in this line. But until then, we're able to use that funding to help us out and decrease our budget, so, okay. The next line, secondary info access fees, we actually have a slight increase. We do not use iReady at the high school, not because that was a choice of ours, but because the product is not designed to be used at the high school level. So we're implementing that through grade 8. For that reason, we are still using some of the programs targeted at informational reading, leveled reading for students, especially at the high school. And some of those costs of their annual licenses went up, so there is a slight increase at the secondary level of $1,427. Info access fees district-wide. This line contains a lot of our programs that are budgeted by our library media specialists for all students across the district. And this is slightly down, and we did, again, streamline some of the programs that we're using through this sort of audit of all of our info access programs that we're using to try to make sure that we're not purchasing products that are just replicating and trying to get to the same aim. So there's a slight decrease there.
Okay. Any questions on curriculum for Sandy?
Good job.
I have just a quick
Great
question.
job, Sandy. Thank
So with
you.
that iReady program,
Yeah.
not that it matters now, but just out of curiosity, what is the licensing fee on that?
So it depends because, of course, they have different packages, right? So, and we got a deal because we signed the 3-year license. But if we were to look at it annually, it's just about $100,000 a year. Just about 100, which is slightly where we are, right? But that full decrease is not solely because of the info access that we decreased, but it's about 100,000.
I was just curious.
Yep.
Awesome, thanks.
I have to say that Sandy is one of the people in the entire district that knows her budgets outside, inside,
Yes, she does.
inside out. She's very conscious, extremely conscious, and she collaborates a lot with a lot of people, so
Thank you.
I do
You don't have any
appreciate that.
questions? I'm ready for questions. No questions?
No?
Okay.
Want us to make some up, Sandy?
No, that's okay.
Wait, let me
No.
think, wait.
No, it's all right. Thanks very much. Have a good day.
Have a
Thanks,
great
Sandy.
night.
All right, last but not least, Mr. Carl.
Want me to hand those out?
I can do it.
You got it?
You're doing enough over there, clicking these back in.
The summary that you have in your packages, please disregard that one. The one that Carl is gonna give you is the one that we should
These
use.
numbers lower?
What do you want us to do? Take this
I'll keep
page
the other
off?
one.
Yeah, the summary page, he's
Yeah,
replacing
well,
that.
both,
Both pages are
both
gonna be
pages are gonna be
They have
replaced.
the same numbers, they're in different orders.
Oh, okay.
so the
Your way to
Summary
go
and the
through it.
detail,
Hey, the
no
numbers
good?
Yeah,
Thanks.
yeah, this is the new one for both.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah, just
Gonna rip this one
disregard
out?
the ones that you had in your
we get
package,
rid of this
take the
one?
ones that Carl is giving.
Get rid of the other one?
Yeah, get rid of the other one, just break it.
Get rid of that one.
Yeah, throw it away, please.
That one too?
All that paper waste.
Have it on recycle.
We're not teaching
Same with
Spanish
this is
anymore
no good?
in the elementary school, so we have lots of
It's the
kids.
same thing, it's just different orders.
That's why we were able to buy that,
Okay.
that
So, like,
iReady program,
half of
because we
this
have
should have some
$55,000 that we're doing.
rounds in it. as
In
well, so
staffing.
I like it separate the rounds and-
Awesome.
Actually, if you want, we'll send them over here. She's collecting them.
What?
Evil.
Oh, you want them? Yeah, here, let me get them.
Just so,
Recycle.
petty.
Thank you.
But we move on.
I don't know what she's got going on. I was gonna try to help you out. So they replaced, oh, sorry.
Facilities.
This is the new one. So anything else for a facility, get rid of. You don't need it. That's the only
All
one.
right, take it away, Carl.
Well, first of all, I want to apologize. I'm not an educator, so I don't speak as eloquently as my predecessors did. I come from a Marine Corps background. It is the Marine Corps birthday. I want to
Yes,
make
it
sure
is.
that's mentioned on
Happy
TV.
Birthday, yeah.
246 years. Thank you for having me tonight. As the new facilities director, it's been quite a challenge to put a budget together in my first 3 months. I originally planned on just doing level funded, but as I delved into everything, as you can see, I found some areas of need. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. And other professional services, this is an increase of $54,672. This is for the inspection and testing of various equipment. Notice previous expenditures are in line with the increased amount. Current voted amount is under the previous year's expenditures. See a list of the inspections and testing. I have included in the budget everything that I have put under this line, and as you can see, just from those, it's well over the $15,000 previously voted on. I don't understand why that was lowered from $97,000 expended to $15,000, but I'm asking for the increase to go back up in that line so that I can get these inspections and testings done. Most of them are an annual. There are some 5 years that need to be done. The elevator has a 5-year load testing that's gonna be due this year. We have a 3-year inspection that needs to be done. It is the 3rd year, so we'll be moving forward with those this year.
So Carl, let me just back up. So the 54 is to get us back up to the 97 range?
It's gonna, the 54 will get us to the,
54 and 15.
6972.
Okay. Yep.
It'll just get us to 69,672. It's still not even near the 97. I don't know what they expended it on, but these are the inspections and testings that I know that need to be done in this line.
Okay.
There is a $20,000 in there that says for other inspections and testing. As I said, I've only been here 3 months and I'm finding things all over the place that need to be inspected. The next line will be the water, sewer, and septic tanks. I'm asking for a $66,000, $66,379.80. This is due to the fact that this year when I arrived here, first of all, I want to explain, I've never dealt with water, private water systems before this district. I've always had town water, so it was a challenge for me to get a grasp on this. Unfortunately, when I got here, it seems like everywhere I go, as soon as I get there, something has blown up. So when we got here, the Department of Environmental Services has reduced their permissible limits of arsenic in our water from 10 parts per billion or some sort of measurement to 5. That put 2 of our systems immediately over the limit. We had to replace a couple already. And the other 2, there's 2 other systems that are very close and will probably be there, but they're the next time they do the testing. So I'm budgeting for it for next year. I apologize for that, and with that, part of that increase is gonna be those, it's $36,000 for the middle school and another $26,000 for the arsenic filtration at Atkinson.
Got a question?
Yes,
while you're still on the water, are there any discussions about getting the potable water that's now going to be available, at least in this area? So then you don't have to do.
It is
do get clean
available.
water, yeah.
It is available to Pollard right now. Well, not now, but when the system comes online, it will be available there. In order to get it to the high school, middle school, SAU complex will need about anywhere between 1.4 and 1.8 million dollars to get that done. It's not gonna be on this road, so they would have to come in either that way or off of East Road. So unfortunately, they didn't extend it just down this road, unfortunately, so in order for us to do it. And it might be worthwhile, because, again, this filtration, once you put it in, it's every 2 years you have to change the media, so, and it's a 20,000 proposition for each building, so it's just an added expense, so.
Then you
at
gotta
some
keep
point-
testing it.
What's that?
Then you have to keep testing it.
Right, and the testing has to continue, and there's another thing that's changed, the manganese or magnesium levels, permissible limits have changed, and we're getting close on that in a couple of buildings, so there's always gonna be something that I think has to be done, so public water is definitely a way to go if we can find the money to do that at some point, so.
I was wondering if there were any grants we could probably get from the state or whatever, because it is a contamination, water quality issue.
Well, you can treat the water quality, so. that-
Yeah.
I really hope that you take advantage of it coming down by Pollard.
Yeah.
It's gonna
Oh,
come right down the front
that's-
of the building.
Already
That's a
there,
no-brainer. It's
Get
gonna
that
be
in
there,
there.
it's just a few $1,000s, and we'll get rid of some of the
Because you've got some well
filtration.
issues there.
Oh, we got a lot of issues.
So which buildings are over the limit now?
So,
Atkinson?
we've, Atkinson,
It's going through Atkinson.
Atkinson, I think we're hold on. So Atkinson's gonna be next year budgeted, the middle school is gonna be budgeted for next year. They're close, they're not there, but if they do one more test and it's over, we gotta do it, so I wanna get it in the budget. It's like a 5-year average they take on your testing, and they're all right there. So we've already changed the high school, and we've already, we just got approval to do one other school, Sandown North, right? Sandown North, so we'll be installing that shortly. We just got approval to go ahead and do that, so.
Yeah, I'm not sure of the water lines in Atkinson, so it's not anywhere near any of the
There is
public
nothing
water
there.
lines. All right,
Perhaps looking ahead towards CIP planning in the future, Carl, is to put that in the CIP to get this, we'll call this the campus, to get this campus hooked up to the Plasto line.
And I did talk to, I can't remember her name, Dee Voss, I think
Yes,
it is.
Dee, yeah.
So they are planning to turn on at some point, and we just gotta wait until they're ready. They don't even have the pump station fully
Right,
built or anything
right.
like that, so it's not an immediate, imminent thing, and, it should be, the initial cost isn't gonna be too much. We just have to get it from the connector out in the street into the building. We have to put a backflow preventer in to Pollard for the fire system, and it shouldn't be too much of a issue.
I hope we consider that.
Oh, it's being considered. Everything's considered. So that's the explanation for the increase in that. And I hate coming to my first budget meeting and asking for these increases, folks, I really do, so I apologize in advance. For general repairs and maintenance, I'm asking for 80,902, and this is for increased maintenance. You can see the budget sheet, and to bring the line closer to actuals over the last few years, and also, we're consolidating a few lines into one. They were separating the maintenance lines across all the different schools and buildings, and I'm just consolidating it into one to make things a little easier for our budgeting purposes and tracking. So as you can see, there's, make sure I'm on the right line here. General repairs and fills, yep. So as you can see, there's other things that have been being brought forward. The price is on there, the $45,000, that's an automatic PM that we're already paying out to this company. Some of these are things that need to be done, fire pump annual services. $65,000 for the general facility repairs, and that's a pretty low number for a district this size to have a maintenance budget for that low. I just wanna We have generators that need to be serviced, 2 in the district, gym floors that need to be recoated on an annual basis for $15,000.
At one floor or numbers of floors?
That's all the floors in the district. We do them every summer.
Okay,
The only one that doesn't get done is Danville. They have a tile floor.
rubber, yeah.
Kitchen hood cleanings for $8,000. Those are supposed to be done twice a year. This is just to get us started. We haven't done those in a while. And a new PM that we've never done is the pack turntable. That whole thing turns on a 1/2 horsepower motor, and if there's any junk in there, or if it's misaligned or anything, it's not gonna turn, so. And as far as I could find, nobody has done any preventive maintenance on a regular scheduled basis, so this is to get the company that actually works on those to come in and fix the,
That's what
and do
PM means?
preventive maintenance.
Preventive maintenance.
Yes, ma'am.
Just trying to get all the jargon.
I know $142,000 is a lot of money, but if you've noticed in 2020, they expended $207,000. 2019, they expended $268,000. Last year, they voted 61.9. I'm trying to make up for stuff that was cut out before I got here. I apologize. I don't know why they were cut, so. As we move on, plumbing and electrical. The district no longer has in-house plumber, and in order to hire a plumbing company, I just asking for $50,000 in that line. The line was I mean, it's never been budgeted. They expended $85,000, so I don't know why that line is. So it's hard to explain that line. It was there, nothing, and they spent $86,000 one year, but, just to let you know, we don't have a plumber, and if that's where I'm gonna pay for the plumber, that's the line it would have to come out of, so that's why I'm asking for $50,000. Account description, travel workshops and custodial. The value of industry training and workshops is immeasurable. There's plenty of things that go on in this area. Association of Physical Plant Administrators, the Northern New England chapter of the Eastern Region of the Association of Physical Plant Administrators, New Hampshire Association of School Business Officials puts on a Facilities Masters Conference, and it's also the line that covers the reimbursement for the mileage for me and my supervisors to drive between the buildings in our own vehicles, so that's why this line is going up. We're spending probably gonna be around $5,000, maybe $6,000 between the two of us driving between buildings. This is just based on the first 3 months. And I can tell you, as the construction projects that we're planning are coming online, I'm gonna be doing a lot more traveling. We're all gonna be doing a lot more traveling, so,
You get reimbursed on, can I ask?
yeah, yes,
You get
ma'am.
reimbursed on like, it's this much a month, or do you get reimbursed per?
Per mile, and and I can tell you, I'm missing some of the tracking. It would be much easier if it was just some sort of a,
'Cause some of them are like that. They just you put them all back to per mile.
Per mile.
it's a bear to,
Used to be,
there used to be a stipend, I saw it in the budget,
Right.
but, it
not
was.
for everybody, but for some,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, in this case, I want to make the argument that it makes sense, because I mean, there's days that they go, you know, they have to go to Danville, then an emergency happens in Pollard, and they have to come back here, then.
It's just, you know,
And so what happens is,
Time he spent.
in the craziness of doing all that, he forgets,
And loses.
and he loses out.
Yeah, 'cause
Where
I'm not
if you
gonna
had a
fake anything,
stipended
so.
amount, you know, you get whatever it is, 200 a month, you get 200 a month. If you drive 6 miles or 600 miles. To me,
No, and the amount
I
of,
support you getting a stipend, because you got a lot of stuff to do on here versus
Thank-
keeping track of your mileage.
thank you, I appreciate you. So that's why that budget line's going up, $5,000. I can't talk enough about the Facility Masters Conference. They have vendors there, they have training, they have specialized training for custodial, they have a leadership track that goes on for the 2-day conference, and it's about $75 to $90 a person, depending on what they're doing. They also have a big thing on School Dude. I don't know if you know, that's our maintenance management program, and I'll be talking about that a little later. but they have a training scheduled, the entire 2-day schedule, so that we can better utilize that programming. Here we go, information access fees, $14,000. So I'm asking to add what's called School Dude Event Essentials. Event Essentials is a facility scheduling program that can be accessed from outside the building onto, on any website. You just get onto our website, you log in. It automatically tracks where you're gonna be using and automatically turns on the HVAC in the room that you're gonna be utilizing. And with the projects we're doing, we're gonna have upgraded controls for everything, so we'll be able to better control the equipment. It's gonna be shut off when nobody's in there, so, and when somebody puts in, they wanna use the gym on a Saturday, it automatically turns the HVAC on in that area in time for the room to be usable. It's quite easy right now. What happens is they fill out a piece of paper and it gets walked through the building, and sometimes it gets, I won't say lost, but it gets lost in my email. So like, we had multiple events in the building last night. I forgot to tell our HVAC technician, and he has to go in and turn everything on, and he can't do it from home. Our controls are gonna allow us to do stuff from home after we get them upgraded, but he had to come in and turn them all on so that people weren't uncomfortable last night. So it's a better program, better usage, easier to, so if you're requesting to use a building, it automatically routes it to the people that have to approve it. So it would go to the building principal, it would go to the athletic director if it's gonna be used in any of the athletic facilities, or it would go to the librarian if they wanted to do it, the librarian. And I would be the final approval so that I could assign work orders. It automatically creates work orders for anything that's needed to be done. So it's an invaluable system to be put into our facilities. It's bringing us up to the 1990s.
Excellent.
Replacement equipment. Let me get on that page. Give me a second, sorry, I lost my place. So this is $20,000 increase, $20,400 increases to replace older equipment with newer equipment in the entire budget. The CIP recommendation for this year was to replace 2 ride-on auto scrubbers. So those are included in this price.
We're on page
I
7.
got it, yep,
Carl.
I got it. So, the equipment that's listed here, I talked to the custodians in each of the buildings, Mike is my supervisor, just so you didn't know. We talked to those custodians and looked at the equipment that they're requesting, and there's some equipment that needs to be replaced and upgraded, so that's why you have a backpack sprayer for the pack. They don't even have one over there, so whenever we have to spray to disinfect, we have to go to another building and get the backpack, so we're just buying one for there. Somebody needed an appliance dolly, and $1,000 for general tool replacement. That's about it. Contracted services grounds. So right now, the grounds are not, we don't do to the grounds what need to be done to the grounds to maintain them in a safe playing environment. So right now, we hire a company that comes in and they just spray the same stuff that they are spraying on everybody else's lawns, residentials or stuff like that. So we want to do a targeted approach. We're going to test the soils to find out exactly what they need, and then we want to apply them. Some things that need to be done to grass in order for it to grow in a safe manner and to be playable is to deep tine aerate. Deep tine aeration gets down below the root level, breaks the ground up, and allows proper drainage. It allows nutrients to get to the roots of the grass, and allows the roots to actually grow deeper into the ground. This also makes the ground a little softer for play, so when an athlete falls and hits their head, there's actually GMAC testing. I'm not asking for the GMAC testing. It tests how hard a kid's head hits the ground when it hits the ground, and aeration is a big proponent of that. Top dressing is a big thing that needs to be done. All things that I don't have a deep tine air, and I don't have a top dresser. So in order to do that, we have to hire that out. So these are the prices to get that added on to our arsenal, to say. Unfortunately, I don't think it would be worthwhile to buy a top dresser at this point. I haven't really done the evaluation of it, but I know we need to do it. And what you top dress is based on your fields, of course. The football field has good loam on there. We'd top dress with sand through improved drainage throughout it. The practice football field is a desert. We'd top dress with compost to put some nutrients into it. So it's based on what the fields need is what we'd be putting out there. Then on top of that, well, we'll go on to the next. So that's why we need the increase in the contracted surfaces to get the top dressing and the deep tine aeration done.
This is just at the campus,
This-
not at the other schools, the
This is
other
gonna be for
6
the,
buildings?
this is gonna be, we would probably only do this campus, because the other 6 buildings don't really have athletic fields. They're not as in demand as a high school or even a middle school teams would use. You're not gonna have the little kids hitting the ground with the same impact as anything else. It would be lovely to get all those going, but it's gonna be a lot more money than this, because those fields are, they're my backyard, basically, you know, they're not really athletic fields.
So this is just high school, or does it
This would be
include-
the high school and the middle school.
It is the middle school?
Yes.
Okay.
The next line that we have an increase in is the grounds equipment repair and maintenance. I'm just looking at that line as the 3-year average. It was cut down the previous year, so I'm asking it to get back up to the 3-year expended average. Ground supplies, this is where we're gonna purchase. So the fields are in needs of better fertilizer. Like I said, we're gonna do a targeted approach, so we'll test the soils. We'll purchase the fertilizers that are best needed on those fields. This will also purchase some loam. It'll purchase seed. I don't know if, so the seed we've been using over the years is we just go to Agway and buy seed. The best seed for an athletic field is what's called Touchdown 50/50. This is what I've found over the years. It's a mixture of 3 different types of rye and 3 different types of bluegrasses. That makes it disease resistant. The rye come up within relatively quick. It grows within about a week. The bluegrass comes in 2 to 3 weeks, but the bluegrass will hopefully take over if it's a stronger grass that stands up to the wear and tear of athletics on it. So we want to put good grass out there, but we want again, like the 50/50, the rye comes up quick. The other stuff fills in later and hopefully takes over the ryegrass over time. So that's what I'm recommending. And unfortunately, this year, the seed crop was destroyed immensely. It's mostly grown in Washington and Oregon. As you know, we've had a lot of fires. The smoke out there and everything like that has put a damaging on the crop, and the seed prices have almost tripled. 70% in price, not tripled, sorry. I've worked with a company called Tom Irwin. They not only sell seed, fertilizer, they provide an agronomic program. They come out, they're the ones that are gonna take the soil samples, recommend the proper fertilizers, and they enter it into a computer program that my ground supervisor and I will be able to access, that tells us when to put out how much and the best time of year, and it also helps the budget. We haven't gotten too far into that. They did come out and walk the fields with us, and they're also interested in doing I don't know if you know, we have an ad hoc athletic facilities committee. They're also interested in doing the grounds, what do they call it, the study for the, what people want to use it for, so we're getting ready to get that going as well, but they're one of the companies that are interested in that. I also contacted a company called Activitas, which will also do that study for us. So that's the added money there. New equipment grounds. So like I said, we don't have the equipment to do deep tine aeration. We don't have the equipment to do shallow tine or core aeration. So I'm asking for a machine that will actually do all of that together. It's called an aerator. It aerates. It'll have a seed box on it, so we'll be able to seed as we're aerating to get the seed down into the holes to protect them so they have a better chance of growing. With that machine, we can reduce the need for sod on the field. Sod, I think, doesn't grow well here. I want to let it grow better. I want the grass to grow better, so the best way to do that is to seed constantly. So we'll have a slice seeder attachment on this aerator that will seed goal mouths and during the season and not cause any damage to the fields that they're playing on. We also will have a core aerator on it so that we can actually pull cores out and put the seeds down in them deeper. And then you drag them in, and then the other option is to just keep throwing seed on top of the goal mouths as the players are playing on it. There's cleats will push it in. So in order to get the fields looking good, maintained better, not having to put sod out there so we don't have a big dead rectangle in the middle of the football field like we do now, this is what we're recommended.
So this is this a one piece of equipment?
It's a piece of an equipment with multiple attachments, so that we'd be able to use it has the blades that cut into the ground that drop the seeds down in it, and we also have corator attachment that goes on there, and we'll be able to corate. Yes, it's one piece of equipment with multiple attachments.
For
There is,
$21,000?
that's for the, sorry, I'll have to. Yeah, I believe it was the $21,000. Let me find it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Not on the CIP?
It is not on the CIP. As I said, this is all new stuff that we're trying to do to make the fields come up to
You're keeping track.
better. We're also buying a Foley mower blade sharpener. Right now, whenever a blade gets dull on the mowers, we buy new ones and throw the old ones away. So we're gonna start sharpening the blades, be able to get 2 or 3 rounds out of them before we throw them away. This is it's a pricey proposition because we're also putting a vacuum on it, so we're not blowing shards of metal throughout our shop. And it's also got a balancer so that the blades are balanced and not wobbling and causing damage to the mowers. We're also asking for a Vicon 900-pound spreader. This will be used to spread seed and fertilizer on our own. Mostly fertilizer, I would imagine. Unfortunately, it's not big enough to put the top dressing out there, but it will allow us to do in-house fertilizing, so we won't have to rely on somebody else to come in and do that for us. We still will have to hire out people out to come in and put chemicals down like herbicides, pesticides. We don't have any licensed associates here, so we won't be able to do that, so we still have to hire them. Next line. So the next line is the replacement equipment grounds for $13,000. We haven't had a chance to go through all the equipment that we have throughout the district, snow blowers and stuff like that, so we don't plan on asking for too much in that line this year, so we're going down $13,000. That's the 737 line. So we still need a snow blower for Danville. That's been requested, and we looked at it, and it does need to be done. And then $5,000 just general equipment in that line. Vehicle fuel. I don't know if you've noticed the gas prices, they've gone up over 120% since last year, so we're asking for more money for that to put in our vehicles. We have multiple maintenance vans, we have multiple grounds vehicles, and all the mowers and snow blowers that are gonna need fuel. So hopefully we can cover it with that increase. Vehicle replacement, in the CIP, we have an F-550 that's due up for replacement, it's a 2008. The original, the price in the CIP was in the $50,000 range. I don't think we could get a vehicle for $65,000, so I'm asking for that to be increased. I'm sorry, it said 68,000. I think we're, on a F-550 with a dump, I think you're gonna be looking at 75, 80,000. It's gonna be a lot, so I'm asking for an increase in that. There you go. Getting there. Yeah, $75,000 is what I'm estimating. It would be a bare bones one. You can't buy an F-350 Super Duty right now for less than $90,000, so, just looking. I am going through the state bidding process to get that. The state actually goes out to bid for vehicles on an annual basis, and we're trying to purchase through them, but right now, like we have a van that's supposed to be replaced this year. Their bid ended back right before I got here, basically, so I'm waiting for them to open up bids again for the next, to buy that vehicle, and then we'll get on the list for this as well. Alarm testing and repair. Fire alarm testing, as you can see, is $3,730. Sprinkler alarm repairs are $5,000. Sprinkler gauge replacements this year are gonna be $2,000. Sprinkler internal inspections are due this year. These are both 5-year things that need to be done. That's about $5,000. And then the sprinkler testing and inspections, $10,000. So, again, the $16,000 was just not gonna be adequate to cover those testing and inspections. Utilities, I didn't put any numbers in here. I did bring, hold on a second. I've been working with Freedom Energy. Freedom Energy is going out to bid for our electricity in the next couple of days. We have a contract up until November of next year for our electricity. I don't know if you've noticed the electricity prices. Unitil has sent out a message saying that prices are going up from 7 cents per kilowatt to 17 cents a kilowatt. This is the proposed, the electric pricing over the past and into the near future. As you can see, it is going up immensely. I'm trying to get locked-in prices for the 3 years following the 2022, and right now it's gonna be about, I forget what the email said, but it's gonna be about $25,000 more just for electricity over what we're paying this year for the district-wide for the next, each year, 3 years, so the 3 years after November of 2022. If we locked in tomorrow, I've asked them to get the competitive prices based off tomorrow's indexes. Hopefully we can get in there. We do have an opportunity to do what's called net metering. It's a new law that came out in the state that allows municipalities and school districts to purchase their electricity from hydro dams or solar panel producers. We're looking at the possibility of buying off a hydro dam, and it won't affect anything except that we get $15,000 back a year roughly based on what our usage would be. We're going over that, we're trying to make sure that it doesn't affect the performance contracting that we're gonna be doing over the next 2 years. So we'll be going forth with that, hopefully. That's all I got. I know it's a lot. I know I'm new here, but as you can see, there's a lot of things that need to be done. Some things that we've done recently is we had the bleachers inspected, and they need about $20,000 worth of repairs and about $29,000 of code upgrades, so we're gonna be moving forward with fixing those as well. And it seems.
But they're still safe now, right?
Well, we had one break on somebody 2 games ago. All right, so we did have them inspected, and they did a lot of repairs. The repairs that need to be done are the benches. If you look at the student section, they're all wavy. That's one that got bent at the end, so they wanna put in, the company suggested that we put in sturdier seats in that section, just because of that. The visitor side bleachers, the front, I don't know if you noticed, the front of them are kind of curled down. It's because they're not being supported properly, so we're gonna try to get those upgraded and get them supported properly. Plus, there's $29,000 worth of code violations that need to be upgraded, code updates, not violations. There's no handrails in the stairs going up them, and then if you put handrails in, the stairwells aren't wide enough, so they have to cut those back. Just a lot of things that, you know, that have been upgraded over years that we just have not been addressed. I'd like to, and we're gonna be addressing those.
So is that a CIP item, or is that something that we have built in? to
We've
get
already,
repaired next year?
we're already been approved to
Oh, you're
take
doing it.
that out of the capital
Okay,
improvement.
fantastic.
One of
Okay.
those capital lines that we have.
Carl, so you have, electric, flat for now. Are you saying that based on the information you're trying to track down, that we probably will see an increase there then as
Yes.
well, yes?
And we didn't have the information, so that's why we
That's fine.
weren't sure what number to put.
I got it in the mail too.
I just,
I don't wanna
Mine
put
didn't say it was going down, I know that.
15%
I just don't
or a
know,
4%,
I just don't know where to go there yet. I haven't seen the usage in the building too much. We're just starting to get involved. For those that don't know, I don't know if you all know or not know, I don't know, we're getting ready to do what's called a performance contract. This is where a company comes in, we've already selected the company, it's already been approved, we're already moving forward. But the company comes in, they do a complete audit of all our energy use in the buildings, and then they come back and say, we'd like to upgrade all your equipment, and it's gonna be paid for with the savings from the energies. And the way you do better is you expand that out over 10 years, and you're allowed, that allows you to spend more money on this project, so you can replace windows, you can replace roofs, and items like that. And we're already starting right now, trying to get the boilers replaced up at Danville. That we're trying to get a seed grant that has to be spent by June 30th of this year, of next year, so we're really pushing forward for that portion of it to get started, but it's gonna be quite an undertaking, and I look forward to coming back with new equipment and new energy savings over the years, so.
So I'm gonna go first. So first off, fantastic job. Super happy you're here. It's been a bit, okay, since we've had this kind of detail, this kind of like really taking a hard look, and that's what we need. So I'll be the first to tell you that. Secondly, I mean, there's some things in this detail that just, I mean, they're just clearly not accurate. Like and this isn't your fault or anyone's fault, but like electric, let's take that as an example. I mean, we obviously didn't vote $1 for all the electricity for the district.
Yeah.
In 2019, 2020, we voted
Oh,
nothing. So
no,
that's definitely
No,
not.
that is because it gets budgeted in a district-wide line, and then the actuals come
But
hit each different school.
But then in the district-wide line, it says that we expended nothing in 2021, nothing in 2020.
Right, because the actual
'Cause there were
expenditures
actuals
are
on
by
lines.
school.
Each
Building.
other building.
Yes,
Yeah.
so I don't know why they did it this way. It wasn't-
Okay, so that's fine, but to answer some of your questions from earlier, Carl, you know, the different objects, when we did our budget in the last year and the year before that, I mean, clearly we look at trending, and we didn't know what 2021 was gonna be, cause obviously we built the budget a year ago, right? So it does look like there was an uptick in 2021 that goes away from what the trends were, if you look at the bottom line budget. Because traditionally, we were budgeting and then spending less than what we were budgeting. That said, after going on all the I'm just speaking for myself, after going on all the facility tours, and I know you were brand spanking new even then, and you've only been here for 3 months, but you've definitely put in some work and really taken a hard look at what's going on. But I personally enjoyed going on the facility tours, enjoyed you taking us on the ride, and showing us, you know, what the state of our buildings are in. So I personally am very thankful to you for putting such a detailed presentation together. And I know we all feel like, not just the CIP, but we want to make sure that we have everything. We want to have bleachers that are great, and we want to have, you know, fields that are fantastic, and so that's where I am. But I'll let anybody else ask Carl any questions. Mike?
So thank you very much. Great presentation.
Thank you.
Regarding the plumber on staff that we don't have, is it the intent, you think, to replace it? Because I've always heard in the past how beneficial it was to have our own electrician and plumber on hand.
Sure. It is beneficial definitely to have a plumber on staff. Unfortunately, the plumber that was here, we replaced him with our general maintenance technician, and he's invaluable as well. So at some point, maybe it would be beneficial to add a plumber back in. I don't know how much we're gonna need him at this juncture, but
Sure.
it would be nice to get one back on staff at some point. It's always beneficial to have a certified person instead of hiring a vendor and relying on a vendor to come out. Yes, sir.
Yeah, but then again, it probably costs you more than $50,000 a year to keep a full-time plumber.
And
too.
it might cost me more than $50,000 this year to have our vendor come in too.
True, yeah.
I'm not gonna ask for $300,000, because there's nothing specific that I'm asking for. I know some deep things that need to be done. We have a pipe at Pollard that just got replaced. We have, that was neat. You'd turn the water on second floor, and in the boiler room, water would come pouring out of this pipe that was just disintegrated, and, you know, it was from 1912, and it was time to get replaced. But
Lasted a long time.
but
Yeah.
we also have some that are only
Money's
20
worth.
years old, that is the main hot water feed to the pack that's gonna need to be replaced. So that's gonna be coming up real quick too, so. So, yeah, it's just a guesstimate on how much I needed for this year.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of you can't predict what's gonna
I
happen.
can't.
But on the other hand, you'd also, if you have no problems, you still have to pay a full-time employee, and you have to give benefits and
Right.
whatever, things like that. And that could be quite expensive, insurance, all that.
Absolutely,
So
yeah.
when you have a contractor, all those overhead costs go to the company that's providing the
Yeah,
service.
but they're gonna just add the price to fix stuff. to
True, but
cover
you
that
only,
stuff,
you only
right.
use them when you need them.
Right. Yes, ma'am.
Just a quick question about the fertilizer, and I know I can see you're looking to purchase some equipment so that you can do some of the stuff ourselves.
Yes, ma'am.
Or yourself, the district. Is it just the one company that you had mentioned you were looking at?
So the fertilizer company that, and the reason I look with them is because they don't just come with providing fertilizer, they come with their expertise. I have a guy here every other week looking at our field, making sure that there's no disease coming up. It's an added benefit to use them. Their fertilizer is more expensive, their grass seed's gonna be a little more expensive, but this guy drives up from south of Boston twice a week, looks at our fields. Both myself, I used them at Winnicott, we couldn't afford them at Summersworth, and just to tell you, my budget at Summersworth for entire grounds was $9,500, so, that's not the way to take care of fields, so, just to let you know, our ground supervisor, he actually used them up at where he was before. He was at Sanborn Regional, and he was named Sports Turf Manager of the Year in 2017 because of how well he took care of the field. So I feel this is a start. It's definitely not where we need to be, but it's a good start to get us going where we need to be.
Okay.
I like the discussion on the surfaces and the playing fields, whatever, and hopefully that'll put the discussions about putting AstroTurf in the future, because what you're doing is you're making them safe by using the natural method.
Right.
And hopefully that's, in the long run, will cost less than maintaining
It
the
would
artificial
I
surface.
can
yeah.
guarantee you it would
Yeah.
cost less than AstroTurf, but there are, that's why we want to do a complete audit of our facilities and stuff like this. We'll hire a company to come in. They're gonna interview the they're gonna interview all the stakeholders, they're gonna interview the police, they're gonna interview the town administrators of all the districts, and we're gonna look at all the fields in the districts and to see what their usage is. And then it will also tell us if we need AstroTurf. We may very well need it based on the usage. But there's also the other thing that we have lots of space. We could add a new practice field somewhere, upgrade the rest of our fields, and then not have to put AstroTurf in. AstroTurf is not cheap. It's it's $1.5 million proposition just to begin, and every 10, 15 years, and if you get a lot of use, maybe even sooner, you have to replace the whole thing, and you have to pay for the disposal. Another $750,000 every 10 years. That spread out over 10 years on the grass, we can do a lot to that grass with that. So I'm not an opponent to AstroTurf. If there's a need for it, by all means, it would be a great thing. I don't think it's gonna go in between the track, because the track is a weird shape, so that you can't fit in a full soccer field in there. So it might be that it's on a baseball field. You put it on a baseball field, the outfield can be used for soccer and other sports out there as well. So the best field, I think, to put it on is the field hockey. That's the most dependent on a good ball roll, so. But our field hockey field is beautiful.
Well, what I'm commending you on is you're taking a scientific approach and seeing what we actually have, so we can then determine what the best way to go forward
Absolutely.
to make it better.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I just had a couple questions. I wanted to go back to, on page 3, under it's the general repairs facilities, and you have just, under the general facility repairs, it's $65,905. I just didn't know if, we could just get a little detail on where those costs are.
Doorknobs, sprinkler pipes, sprinkler heads, it's everything else. I mean, we might have to go, I don't know, doorknobs is a good one. Keys, we have to make keys, everyone's, Pat's Key and Lock. Painting stuff, painting supply, it's just stuff like that. Carpet, we have to put carpet in a classroom or something like that, or replace a carpet tile. Windows that get broken.
Window shades, is that in there?
So shades are not in here. I haven't had time to get a quote on that yet. I'd like to get a quote to replace, so doors in a classroom should all have shades on it. For safety reasons, they shouldn't have paper on it. It's a, right now, if the teacher's going to lockdown, they put big pieces of paper over it. Well, there are also fire exits, and you don't want paper on a fire exit because it becomes flammable. So I'm looking into getting shades for the whole district. I don't know if I can get a grant. I've been talking to the Department of Homeland Security for New Hampshire this week. The last 2 weeks, they've been inspecting our schools. We're moving on to others. But that's one thing I'm definitely looking at. Each door should have a shade. Windows should have a shade. It's not as big of a deal during a lockdown, but having a nice shade in a classroom is also good too. So we'll be looking at all the shades, so, yes.
And I guess we went through some of the tours, there were some curtains and things that weren't fire retardant,
That's
whatever. That's also gonna be included in all this?
Sooner or later. It's gonna take time to teach the teachers about how to properly set up their classrooms. You're not supposed to have stuff hanging from ceilings. You're not supposed to hang paper in the hallway that flaps in the wind, because that catches on fire. It acts as a big flame thrower, basically. There's a lot of things that have to be addressed, and we'll be working on that. I've only been here 3 months.
I also had another couple questions. Going back to the athletic field, the whole treatment of the grass, is this something that will have to be done on an annual basis? The fertilization, is this an ongoing thing?
It's gonna be multiple times a year. We will fertilize 2, 3, 4 times a year, depending on the needs.
Okay, so
And
this would be,
annually.
this would be like an annual expense then?
Oh, this is gonna be forever, and there may be more needs too, so I mean,
Right,
this is
depending
just,
on more
again, we
fields.
haven't done the soil samples, I just know right now we need to increase what we're doing and address it, so we will be doing it, and yes, it is an annual cost.
Okay, and then as far as on getting the new piece of equipment, the Aerovator.
Yep.
And everything, and you had mentioned that that'll require training, so will your staff be able to do this?
My staff already knows how to use it.
They already know how to
The
use it.
supervisor knows how to use it, that we've already used a lot of equipment.
Okay.
One thing that you guys have at this district is called a rotodarian. That's almost unheard of. It's a piece of equipment to turn up the fields, the infields for baseball and softball.
Oh.
Unheard of a school district owning one of that. I
Thank
was
you.
very impressed of owning that.
Thank you very
That
much.
was,
Is that you?
that was amazing to have that.
Softball coach,
It's,
right?
when I saw that, I was like, wow. Al saw that, he was like, wow.
Just like to do it more sooner than later.
Right, we've already done a lot of the fields
I
this
saw you
year.
did.
Unfortunately, it might have been a little too late. The problem with that is you gotta get it before the weeds start growing
Start
in,
in,
because
yeah.
otherwise you're putting weeds
Back in the ground.
back into the ground, and you're gonna have compost, which is gonna create more weed. That's not what you want on infield, so we'll be addressing that. You notice, part of the budget's called for weed killing, so we'd wanna kill them before we put them back into the ground, or hopefully even before. Tom Irwin actually already talked to us. They actually have a product that you can put out there that will prevent the weeds from growing to begin with, so that would be even the better course to do, so we'll be working on it.
So, just along those lines of the staff doing this, is this going to be extra work added to them? Is this, I mean, I don't know what they are doing for maintenance now.
It's gonna be added work, it's gonna be added work, yes. And when we start putting the right fertilizer down, then we start aerating, the grass is gonna go faster, and when it grows faster, we're gonna have to mow more. Yep.
Yep.
However, they do sell a chemical you can spray on your fields to stop the grass from growing faster.
Oh, we don't want
Sue, go ahead.
Oh, boy. And just one final question, I'm sorry, regarding, going down to the sprinkler and alarm testing. And I know that, a couple of them you had, it's a 5-year requirement, the $2,000 one, the $5,000 one. And then you have the sprinkler testing and inspection for $10,000. Is that an annual
Yep.
expense as well?
Yes. So they come in a couple times a year and run the sprinkler systems, make sure
Okay.
the bells and whistles work, and make sure the pipes are not
Okay.
blocked and stuff like that.
All right.
I had a question about that. It says sprinkler internal inspection. Does that mean internal like we are doing it or internal like parts? are being-
Internal, like they open it up and
Okay.
look inside the sprinkler pipes, and it's usually just the valve areas to make sure the valves aren't clogged with debris or corrosion, so that they'll work properly still.
Go ahead, Sue.
Kyle, I really appreciate the amount of detail, the amount of effort you've shown. I've been around for a long time, and so is Mike Mascola, a couple of us here, but beautifully done, and I really appreciate your work. Did you do the fields at Winnicott
Yes.
down in Hampton?
Yes, so
You
when
wanna
I,
see some great fields, take a ride to Hampton.
so when, so
They're
I do wanna say, when I first got there,
unbelievable.
they had areas of brown
That's right.
that were huge. And the athletic director was actually the one that said, you need to go talk to Tom Irwin. Well, she told me two things, go look at Dover and then go talk to Tom Irwin. Dover, I went up there and they had just started an all organic program, and the grubs had taken over and pretty much the whole field was dead, so I said, we're not doing that. And then Tom Irwin came up, and I went to my first meeting on that. I asked for $125,000 to be added to the athletic fields, and they gave me 85, and within that 85, in 2 years, we had the areas that were brown in front of the goalmouse, about the size of this table instead of the size of this room. So it's really a proven program. If you get a chance to go look at Winnicott's fields, I know Tom Irwin is still invested over there, but I can't say how much they're still doing over
Oh,
there.
they were
Yep.
beautiful, so I appreciate the amount of work you've done. I think all the presentations we had tonight were spectacular.
Agreed.
Some of the most detail we've heard, from curriculum to what Chris was talking about, the high school. I mean, beautifully done. That's the level, I believe, we've been looking for this, and certainly Julie's been around a while too. It helps us frame our decisions,
Absolutely.
and I hope the school board appreciates your presentations as well.
Well said, Sue.
Agreed.
I gotta admit, coming forward with this budget was kinda scary. It's a lot to
big
ask
budget.
for, but I can't see how we can do it without it. It's gonna be difficult. A lot of the increases are inspections and testings that have to be done. Others are, it would be nice to get these fields to where they need to be, but I appreciate you listening and asking detailed questions, because I really care about facilities. Been doing this a long time, and I just want to make things better for the kids and users of our facilities.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Thanks a lot, Carl.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carl.
All right. Next on the agenda, other business, none that I know of. No? Okay. With that, I am going to adjourn. Oh, go ahead.
Just one thing, I don't know how the rest of the committee feels about it, but I really don't like to change the day of the week that we come in, because when I went for this office, I looked at it, says, I can do Thursdays. Right, and today I'm missing something really big tonight to be here that wouldn't have to miss it. And I do other things on Thursdays too, but I was able to make the commitments, I don't have to go to those all the time, Lions meetings, things like that, because they're also on Thursdays. But I committed to Thursdays, and I'd like to keep it on Thursdays, and I understand the Veterans Day thing, and, I signed up when I was 17 and retired when I was 60. But the meetings at night, most Veterans Day events happen during the day. So I didn't really see the
Buildings
reason to
can't-
change.
the
it.
buildings
The
are
buildings
closed.
are closed.
Yeah.
Our buildings are closed tomorrow, so we can hold meetings here.
Yeah, but, it's, I would have rather had just postponed it a week or something, but again, I don't know how the rest of the committee
have
feels.
the
Just
school
my
board.
personal preference, I'm just letting it need
So
to be known.
understood,
Yeah.
so next week, the school board, so that's the other tricky thing, they meet every other Thursday and we
Yeah.
meet every other Thursday, right? So,
Yeah.
on that note, we are scheduled to be at the PAC next week with the school board for a joint meeting.
Right.
Okay, now that I believe this is the last of our presentations, Carl was in,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
Okay, so, the reason we have Tuesday, the week following that, isn't because we don't wanna meet on Thursday, it's cause Thanksgiving. And then after that, it goes back to every other Thursday, so, I hear you, I don't like changing them either. Typically, in any given year, the only week I can think of where we haven't done
Thanksgiving.
Thursday is Thanksgiving week. But this year, it turned out a little bit different. But you should be used to every other Thursday, because that's normally
Yeah.
the way it works, okay? On that note, hopefully everyone can join the school board meeting next week, I think it'll be productive.
Yeah, can you,
Yes.
just before we adjourn, can you give us any kind of highlights of what you think that agenda's gonna be? I had reached out to the chairman, but I didn't get a really, is it gonna be an open discussion?
Yes.
Or are we just part of the meeting where we sit and listen?
Yeah, or is there anything we can be prepared for, or?
What's the agenda?
I will get the agenda for you and send it out to everyone. I don't
Perfect.
have it. I think they just had a meeting this week, right?
Yesterday,
Yes.
last night.
So I will get that out to all of you in advance, with plenty of time.
Do you
But
understand what
my
I mean?
understanding is that we are going to go there and have an open discussion with them on,
Okay.
on stage
Is
during
that
their
what we
meeting.
would like to have, a discussion? Where
Oh,
we
yeah.
have some give and take? and
Yes.
it- Or just listen,
No.
No, it's not a just listen. It's more of like a workshop,
okay?
okay?
A workshop,
Well,
That's
it's a
kinda how I
meeting,
thought
but
about
we're
it.
going
Yeah.
to
Work
have back
session.
and forth with them to talk about
So
what
it's
they're
their-
expecting, what they're looking for, what their plans are, to help us formulate our forming of the budget.
so are we a segment of the meeting? You see where I'm going? Are we a segment of their meeting?
Yes. We're not,
Not
it's not
all work session.
the entire meeting is not about the budget. It's a school board meeting,
So it's not a work session. It's a school board meeting. that
and
we've
we
been
are part of
invited-
the agenda.
Okay.
Yes.
We would be like the delegations and individuals.
Right, but we're gonna have,
Yeah.
we'll have our own section within the agenda where we're gonna sit and discuss with them. It's not, right, it is a regular school board meeting, because
Correct.
Yeah,
the
it's
one
a
from
regular
last week
school
got
board.
moved to this week, so,
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is a regular school board meeting.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, then I have one more. So could we expect on Tuesday, November 23rd, you're going to start summing up all these presentations to put together a budget that we can see?
Yes, I don't know why that, that one is because of Thanksgiving.
Well, then tell me, so maybe, what can we expect on the 23rd?
So my goal is to have next week, when you meet with the school board, to have a budget
Okay?
where I
Have the
can,
bottom line,
yeah,
proposed bottom
a
line.
proposed bottom line.
Mhm.
Obviously, we have 5 unions that we're negotiating, so that's not gonna be included there. We have no increases for
Those are
that.
separate warrant articles.
But I'm hoping to have a budget that I can present to both of you, the school board and the budget committee. So that could be,
What we work on the
that
23rd.
that will
Right.
lead your discussion or your interaction with the school board. That's,
Hopefully, the discussion we'd have on that Thursday, Mike, would then help us formulate
On Tuesday?
our discussion
Exactly.
on Tuesday,
Tuesday.
where we're headed.
Yes.
Thank you.
Not a week in between or a couple weeks in between,
Right.
when, you know,
Yeah.
I get a little fuzzy.
This sounds good.
And then we'll have a leg up on the timeline, as opposed to the last couple of years
The
where we
last
were kind
minute.
of, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I like it.
so I have been
need
having
one.
to spend a lot of time with, obviously, all these people because we all are new. So we all are trying to work together to figure out, to provide you and the school board the information at this detail that we're trying to provide, because we all are new, right?
Mhm.
We're just working very close together, trying to do the best that we can to provide this kind of information to you. So that has taken a lot of my time. So I'm hoping that next week I can have a budget
That's right.
that you guys can discuss with the school board, and
I'd also just like to say thank you to you for all the work you've done, because this is I think it's a great improvement.
Yes.
that's
Agreed.
my job, and I'm very happy to be here.
That's from the former chair right there. He knows what he's talking about.
I do care for this district. I live in district. My husband grew up here, and I do genuinely care for this place, so I do it with
We could tell.
my heart.
Okay.
Okay.
With that, we're gonna adjourn the meeting at, what time is it? 9:41.
20,
There you go.
40.
Thanks, everyone. See you next week.
Thank you.
Ask you something.
So next week's at the PAC.